"You should not have done it, Lord Rand," Hurin said when Rand woke the others just at daybreak. The sun yet hid below the horizon, but there was light enough to see. The fog had melted away while dark still held, fading reluctantly. "If you use yourself up to spare us, my lord, who will see to getting us home?" "I needed to think," Rand said. Nothing showed the fog had ever been, all but Alzamon. He fingered the kerchief wrapped around his right hand. There was that to prove Alzamon had been there. He wanted to be away from this place. Time to be in the saddle if we're going to catch Fane's dark friends. Past time. We can eat flatbread while we ride. Loial paused in the act of stretching, his arms reaching as high as Hurin could have standing on Rand's shoulders. "Your hand, Rand." "Rand? What happened? I hurt it." "It's nothing. I have a salve in my saddlebags. It is nothing." Rand knew he sounded harsh, but one look at the brand would surely bring questions he did not want to answer. "Time's wasting. Let us be on our way." He set about saddling Red, awkwardly because of his injured hand, and Hurin jumped to his own horse. "No need to be so touchy," Loial muttered. A track, Rand decided as they set out, would be something natural in that world. There were too many unnatural things there. Even a single hoofprint would be welcome. Fane and the Dark Friends and the Trollocs had to leave some mark. He concentrated on the ground they passed over, trying to make out any trace that could have been made by another living thing. There was nothing, not a turned stone, not a disturbed clod of earth. Once he looked at the ground behind them, just to reassure himself that the land did take hoofprints, scraped turf and bent grass marked their passage plainly, yet ahead the ground was undisturbed. But Hurin insisted he could smell the trail, faint and thin, but still heading south. Once again, the sniffer put all his attentions on the trail he followed, like a hound tracking deer. And once again, Loial rode lost in his own thoughts, muttering to himself and rubbing the huge quarterstaff held across his saddle in front of him. They had not been riding more than an hour when Rand saw the spire ahead. He was so busy watching for tracks that the tapering column already stood thick and tall above the trees in the middle distance when he first noticed it. "I wonder what that is." It lay directly in their path. "I don't know what it can be, Rand," Loial said. If this was our own world, Lord Rand." Hurin shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "Well, that monument Lord Ingtar was talking about, the one to Arthur Hawkwing's victory over the Trollocs. It was a great spire, but it was torn down 1,000 years ago. There's nothing left but a big mound, like a hill. I saw it when I went to Kerhien for Lord Egelmar." "According to Ingtar," Loial said, "that is still 3 or 4 days ahead of us. If it is here at all. I don't know why it should be. I don't think there are any people here at all." The sniffer put his eyes back on the ground. "That's just it, isn't it, Builder? No people, but there it is ahead of us. Maybe we ought to keep clear of it, my Lord Rand. No telling what it is or who's there in a place like this." Rand drummed his fingers on the high pommel of his saddle for a moment, thinking. "We have to stick as close to the trail as we can," he said finally. "We don't seem to be getting any closer to Fane as it is, and I don't want to lose more time if we can avoid it. If we see any people or anything out of the ordinary, then we'll circle around until we pick it up again. But until then, we keep on. As you say, my lord." The sniffer sounded odd, and he gave Rand a quick, sidelong look. "As you say." Rand frowned for a moment before he understood, and then it was his turn to sigh. "Lords did not explain to those who followed them, only to other lords. I didn't ask him to take me for a bloody lord. But he did." A small voice seemed to answer him, "and you let him. You made the choice, now the duty is yours." "Take the trail, Hurin," Rand said. With a flash of relieved grin, the sniffer heeled his horse onward. The weak sun climbed as they rode, and by the time it was overhead, they were only a mile or so from the spire. They had reached one of the streams, in a gully a pace deep, and the intervening trees were sparse. Rand could see the mound it was built on, like a round, flat-topped hill. The grey spire itself rose at least 100 spans, and he could just make out now that the top was carved in the likeness of a bird with outstretched wings. "A hawk," Rand said. "It is Hawkwing's monument. It must be. There were people here, whether there are now or not. They just built it in another place here and never tore it down. Think of it, Hurin. When we get back, you'll be able to tell them what the monument really looked like. There will only be 3 of us in the whole world who have ever seen it." Hurin nodded. "Yes, my lord. My children would like to hear that tale, their father seeing Hawkwing's spire." "Rand," Loial began worriedly. "We can gallop the distance," Rand said. "Come on. A gallop will do us good. This place may be dead, but we're alive." "Rand," Loial said, "I don't think that is a—" Not waiting to hear, Rand dug his boots into Red's flanks, and the stallion sprang forward. He splashed across the shallow ribbon of water in 2 strides, then scrabbled up the far side. Hurin launched his horse right behind him. Rand heard Loial calling behind them, but he laughed, waved for the Ogier to follow, and galloped on. If he kept his eyes on one spot, the land did not seem to slip and slide so badly, and the wind felt good on his face. The mound covered a good 2 hides, but the grassy slope rose an easy slant. The grey spire reared into the sky, squared and broad enough despite its height to seem massive, almost squat. Rand's laughter died, and he pulled Red up, his face grim. "Is that Hawkwing's monument, Lord Rand?" Hurin asked uneasily. "It doesn't look right, somehow." Rand recognized the harsh, angular script that covered the face of the monument, and he recognized some of the symbols chiseled on the breadth, chiseled as tall as a man. The horned skull of the Darvel Trollocs, the iron fist of the Daimon, the trident of the Cobal, and the whirlwind of the Arfright. There was a hawk, too, carved near the bottom. With a wingspan of 10 paces, it lay on its back, pierced by a lightning bolt, and ravens pecked at its eyes. The huge wings atop the spire seemed to block the sun. He heard Loial galloping up behind him. "I tried to tell you, Rand," Loial said. "It is a raven, not a hawk. I could see it clearly." Hurin turned his horse, refusing even to look at the spire any longer. "But how?" Rand said. "Arthur Hawkwing won a victory over the Trollocs here. Ingtar said so." "Not here," Loial said slowly. "Obviously not here. From stone to stone run the lines of it, between the worlds that might be. I've been thinking on it, and I believe I know what the worlds that might be's are." "Maybe I do." "Worlds. Our world might have been if things had happened differently. Maybe that's why it is all so washed out looking. Because it's an if, maybe, just a shadow of the real world. In this world, I think, the Trollocs won. Maybe that's why we have not seen any villagers or people." Rand's skin crawled. "Where Trollocs won, they did not leave humans alive except for food. If they had won across an entire world, if the Trollocs had won, they would be everywhere. We'd have seen 1,000 of them by now. We'd be dead since yesterday. I do not know, Rand. Perhaps, after they killed the people, they killed one another. Trollocs live to kill. That is all they do, that is all they are. I just don't know." "Lord Rand," Hurin said abruptly. Something moved down there. Rand whirled his horse, ready to see charging Trollocs, but Hurin was pointing back the way they had come, at nothing. "What did you see, Hurin?" "Where?" The sniffer let his arm drop. "Right at the edge of that clump of trees there, about a mile. I thought it was a woman and something else I couldn't make out, but He shivered. He shivered. "It's so hard to make out things that aren't under your nose. This place has my guts all a whirl. I'm likely imagining things, my lord. This is a place for queer fancies." His shoulders hunched as if he felt the spire pressing on them. "No doubt it was just the wind, my lord," Loial said. "There's something else to consider, I'm afraid." He sounded troubled again. He pointed southward. "What do you see off there?" Rand squinted against the way things far off seemed to slide toward him. "Land like what we've been crossing. Trees. Then some hills and mountains. Nothing else." "What do you want me to see?" "The mountains," Loial sighed. The tufts on his ears drooped and the ends of his eyebrows were down on his cheeks. "That has to be Kinslayer's dagger, Rand. There aren't any other mountains they could be, unless this world is completely different from ours. But Kinslayer's dagger lies more than 100 leagues south of the Eranin. A good bit more. Distances are hard to judge in this place, but I think we will reach them before dark." He did not have to say any more. They could not have covered over 100 leagues in less than 3 days. "Without thinking," Rand muttered. "Maybe this place is like the ways." He heard Hurin moan, and instantly regretted not keeping a rein on his tongue. It was not a pleasant thought. Enter a waygate, they could be found just outside Ogier Steading, and in Ogier Groves. Enter and walk for a day, and you could leave by another waygate 100 leagues from where you started. The ways were dark now and foul, and to travel them meant to risk death or madness. Even Fades feared to travel the ways. "If it is, Rand," Loial said slowly, "can a misstep kill us here too? Are there things we have not yet seen that can do worse than kill us?" Hurin moaned again. They had been drinking the water, riding along as if they had not a concern in the world. Unconcern would kill quickly in the ways. Rand swallowed, hoping his stomach would settle. "It is too late for worrying about what is past," he said. "From here on, though, we will watch our step." He glanced at Hurin. The sniffer's head had sunk between his shoulders, and his eyes darted as if he wondered what would leap at him, and from where. The man had run down murderers, but this was more than he had ever bargained for. "Hold on to yourself, Hurin. We are not dead yet, and we won't be. We will just have to be careful from here on. That's all." It was at that moment they heard the scream, thin with distance. "A woman," Hurin said. Even this much that was normal seemed to rouse him a little. "I knew I saw." Another scream came, more desperate than the first. "Not unless she can fly," Rand said. "She's south of us." He kicked Red to a dead run in 2 strides. "Be careful, you said," Loial shouted after him. "Light, Rand, remember. Be careful." Rand lay low on Red's back, letting the stallion run. The screams drew him on. It was easy to say, "Be careful," but there was terror in that woman's voice. She did not sound as if she had time for him to be careful. On the edge of another stream, in a sheer bank channel deeper than most, he drew rein. Red skidded in a shower of stones and dirt. The screams were coming. There, he took it all in at a glance. Perhaps 200 paces away, the woman stood beside her horse in the stream, both of them backed against the far bank. With a broken length of branch, she was fending off a snarling. Something. Rand swallowed, stunned for a moment. If a frog were as big as a bear, or if a bear had a frog's grey-green hide, it might look like that. A big bear. Not letting himself think about the creature, he leaped to the ground, unlimbering his bow. If he took the time to ride closer, it might be too late. The woman was barely keeping the thing at the edge of the branch. It was a fair distance. He kept blinking as he tried to judge it. The distance seemed to change by spans every time the thing moved. He had a big target. His bandaged hand made drawing awkward, but he had an arrow loosed almost before his feet were set. The shaft sank into the leathery hide for half its length, and the creature spun to face Rand. Rand took a step back despite the distance. That huge, wedge-shaped head had never been on any animal he could imagine, nor that wide, horny-lipped beak of a mouth, hooked for ripping flesh. And it had 3 eyes, small and fierce and ringed by hard-looking ridges. Gathering itself, the thing bounded toward him down the stream in great, splashing leaps. To Rand's eye, some of the leaps seemed to cover twice as much distance as others, though he was sure they were all the same. "An eye," the woman called. She sounded surprisingly calm, considering her screams. "You must hit an eye to kill it." He drew the fletching of another arrow back to his ear. Reluctantly, he sought the void. He did not want to, but it was for this that Tam had taught him, and he knew he could never make the shot without it. My father, he thought with a sense of loss, and emptiness filled him. The quavering light of saidin was there, but he shut it away. He was one with the bow, with the arrow, with the monstrous shape leaping toward him, one with the tiny eye. He did not even feel the arrow leave the bowstring. The creature rose in another bound, and at the peak the arrow struck its central eye. The thing landed, fountaining another huge splash of water and mud. Ripples spread out from it, but it did not move. "Well shot, and bravely," the woman called. She was on her horse, riding to meet him. Rand felt vaguely surprised that she had not run once the thing's attention was diverted. She rode past the bulk, still surrounded by the ripples of its dying, without even a downward glance, scrambled her horse up the bank and dismounted. Few men would stand to face the charge of a grolm, my lord. She was all in white. Her dress divided for riding and belted in silver, and her boots, peeking out from under her hems, were tooled in silver too. Even her saddle was white and silver-mounted. Her snowy mare, with its arched neck and dainty step, was almost as tall as Rand's bay. But it was the woman herself. She was perhaps Nynaeve's age, he thought, who held his eyes. She was tall, for one thing, a hand taller, and she could almost look him in the eyes. For another, she was beautiful, ivory-pale skin contrasting sharply with long, night-dark hair and black eyes. He had seen beautiful women. Moiraine was beautiful, if cool, and so was Nynaeve, when her temper did not get the better of her. Egwene and Elaine, the daughter heir of Andor, were each enough to take a man's breath. But this woman, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He felt his heart start beating again. "Your retainers, my lord?" Startled, he looked around. Hurin and Loial had joined them. Hurin was staring the way Rand knew he had been, and even the Ogier seemed fascinated. "My friends," he said. "Loial and Hurin. My name is Rand. Randall Thor." "I have never thought of it before," Loial said abruptly, sounding as if he were talking to himself. "But if there is such a thing as perfect human beauty in face and form, then you—" "Loial," Rand shouted. The Ogier's ears stiffened in embarrassment. Rand's own ears were red. Loial's words had been too close to what he himself was thinking. The woman laughed musically, but the next instant she was all regal formality, like a queen on her throne. "I am called Selene," she said. "You have risked your life and saved mine. I am yours, Lord Randall Thor." And, to Rand's horror, she knelt before him. Not looking at Hurin or Loial, he hastily pulled her to her feet. A man who will not die to save a woman is no man. Immediately he disgraced himself by blushing. It was a Shinoran saying, and he knew it sounded pompous before it was out of his mouth, but her manner had infected him, and he could not stop it. "I mean, that is, it was. Fool, you can't tell a woman saving her life was nothing. It was my honor." That sounded vaguely Shinoran and formal. He hoped it would do. His mind was as blank of anything else to say as if he were still in the void. Suddenly he became conscious of her eyes on him. Her expression had not changed, but her dark eyes made him feel as if he were naked. Unbidden, the thought came of Selene with no clothes. His face went red again. Where are you from, Selene? We have not seen another human being since we came here. Is your town nearby?" She looked at him thoughtfully, and he stepped back. Her look made him too aware of how close to her he was. "I am not from this world, my lord," she said. "There are no people here." Nothing living except the grolm and a few other creatures like them. I am from Caerhien, and as to how I came here, I don't know exactly. I was out riding, and I stopped to nap, and when I woke, my horse and I were here. I can only hope, my lord, that you can save me again and help me go home. Selene, I am not a... That is, please call me Rand. His ears felt hot again. Light. It won't hurt anything if she thinks I'm a lord. Burn me, it won't hurt anything. If you wish it. Rand. Her smile made his throat tighten. You will help me? Of course I will. Burn me, but she's beautiful. And looking at me like I'm a hero in a story. He shook his head to clear it of foolishness. But first we have to find the men we are following. I'll try to keep you out of danger, but we must find them. Coming with us will be better than staying here alone. For a moment she was silent, her face blank and smooth. Rand had no idea what she was thinking, except that she seemed to be studying him anew. A man of duty, she said finally. A small smile touched her lips. I like that. Yes. Who are these miscreants you follow? Dark friends and Trollocs, my lady, Hurin burst out. He made an awkward bow to her from his saddle. They did murder in Valere Keep and stole the horn of Valere, my lady, but Lord Rand will fetch it back. Rand stared at the sniffer ruefully. Hurin gave a weak grin. So much for secrecy. It did not matter here, he supposed, but once back in their world. Selene, you must not say anything of the horn to anyone. If it gets out, we'll have 100 people on our heels trying to get the horn for themselves. No, it would never do, Selene said, for that to fall into the wrong hands. The horn of Valere. I could not tell you how often I've dreamed of touching it, holding it in my hands. You must promise me, when you have it, you will let me touch it. Before I can do that, we have to find it. We had better be on our way. Rand offered his hand to help her mount. Hurin scrambled down to hold her stirrup. Whatever that thing was, I killed a grolm. There may be more of them around. Her hand was firm. There was surprising strength in her grip, and her skin was... silk? Something softer, smoother. Rand shivered. There always are, Selene said. The tall white mare frisked and bared her teeth once it read. Yet Selene's touch on the reins quieted her. Rand slung his bow across his back and climbed onto Red. Light. How could anyone's skin be so soft? Hurin, where's the trail? Hurin? Hurin. The sniffer gave a start and left off staring at Selene. Yes, Lord Rand. The trail. South, my lord. Still south. Then let's ride. Rand gave an uneasy look at the grey-green bulk of the grolm lying in the stream. It had been better believing they were the only living things in that world. Take the trail, Hurin. Selene rode alongside Rand at first, talking of this and that, asking him questions and calling him lord. Half a dozen times he started to tell her he was no lord, only a shepherd, and every time, looking at her, he could not get the words out. A lady like her would not talk the same way with a shepherd, he was sure, even one who had saved her life. You will be a great man when you've found the horn of Valere, she told him. A man for the legends. The man who sounds the horn will make his own legends. I don't want to sound it, and I don't want to be part of any legend. He did not know if she was wearing perfume, but there seemed to be a scent to her, something that filled his head with her. Spices, sharp and sweet, tickling his nose, making him swallow. Every man wants to be great. You could be the greatest man in all the ages. It sounded too close to what Moiraine had said. The dragon reborn would certainly stand out through the ages. Not me, he said fervently. I'm just, he thought of her scorn if he told her now that he was only a shepherd after letting her believe he was a lord, and changed what he had been going to say, just trying to find it. And to help a friend. She was silent a moment, then said, You've hurt your hand. It is nothing. He started to put his injured hand inside his coat. It throbbed from holding the reins. But she reached out and took it. He was so surprised he let her. And then there was nothing to do except either jerk away rudely or else let her unwrap the kerchief. Her touch felt cool and sure. His palm was angrily red and puffy, but the heron still stood out, plainly and clearly. She touched the brand with a finger but made no comment on it, not even to ask how he had come by it. This could stiffen your hand if it's untended. I have an ointment that should help. From a pocket inside her cloak she produced a small stone vial, unstopped it, and began gently rubbing a white salve on the burn as they rode. The ointment felt cold at first, then seemed to melt away warmly into his flesh. And it worked as well as Nynaeve's ointment sometimes did. He stared in amazement as the redness faded and the swelling went down under her stroking fingers. Some men, she said, not raising her eyes from his hand, choose to seek greatness, while others are forced to it. It is always better to choose than to be forced. A man who's forced is never completely his own master. He must dance on the strings of those who forced him. Rand pulled his hand free. The brand looked a week old or more, all but healed. What do you mean? He demanded. She smiled at him, and he felt ashamed of his outburst. Why, the horn, of course, she said calmly, putting away her salve. Her mare, stepping along beside Red, was tall enough that her eyes were only a little below Rand's. If you find the horn of Valere, There will be no avoiding greatness. But will it be forced on you, or will you take it? That's the question. He flexed his hand. She sounded so much like Myrain. Are you Aes Sedai? Selene's eyebrows lifted. Her dark eyes glittered at him, but her voice was soft. Aes Sedai? No, I didn't mean to offend you. I'm sorry. Offend me? I am not offended, but I'm no Aes Sedai. Her lip curled in a sneer. Even that was beautiful. They cower in what they think is safety when they could do so much. They serve when they could rule. Let men fight wars when they could bring order to the world. No, never call me Aes Sedai. She smiled and laid her hand on his arm to show she was not angry. Her touch made him swallow, but he was relieved when she let the mare drop back beside Loial. Hurin bobbed his head at her like an old family retainer. Rand was relieved, but he missed her presence too. She was only 2 spans away. He twisted in his saddle to stare at her. Riding by Loial's side, the OGA was bent half double in his saddle so he could talk with her. But that was not the same as being right there beside him, close enough for him to smell her heady scent, close enough to touch. He settled back angrily. It was not that he wanted to touch her exactly. He reminded himself that he loved Egwene. He felt guilty at the need for reminding, but she was beautiful, and she thought he was a lord, and she said he could be a great man. He argued sourly with himself inside his head. Moiraine says you can be great too, the dragon reborn. Selene is not Aes Sedai. That's right, she's a Cairhienin noblewoman, and you're a shepherd. She doesn't know that. How long do you let her believe a lie? It's only till we get out of this place. If we get out, if. On that note, his thoughts subsided to sullen silence. He tried to keep a watch on the country through which they rode if Selene said there were more of those things. Those grolm. About, he believed her. And Hurin was too intent on smelling the trail to notice anything else. Loial was too wrapped up in his talk with Selene to see anything until it bit him on the heel. But it was hard to watch. Turning his head too quickly made his eyes water. A hill or a stand of trees could seem a mile off when seen from one angle, and only a few hundred spans when seen from another. The mountains were growing closer, of that much he was sure. Kinslayer's dagger looming against the sky now, a sawtooth expanse of snow-capped peaks. The land around them already rose in foothills heralding the coming of the mountains. They would reach the edge of the mountains proper well before dark, perhaps in only another hour or so. More than 100 leagues in less than 3 days. Worse than that. We spend most of a day south of the Erinin in the real world. Over 100 leagues in less than 2 days. Here. She says you were right about this place, Rand. Rand gave a start before he realized Loial had ridden up beside him. He looked for Selene and found her riding with Hurin. The sniffer was grinning and ducking his head and all but knuckling his forehead at everything she said. Rand glanced sideways at the Ogier. I'm surprised you could let her go the way you two had your heads together. What do you mean I was right? She's a fascinating woman, isn't she? Some of the elders don't know as much as she does about history, especially the Age of Legends, and about... Oh yes, she says you were right about the ways, Rand. The Aes Sedai, some of them, studied worlds like this, and that study was the basis of how they grew the ways. She says there are worlds where it is time rather than distance that changes. Spend a day in one of those, and you might come back to find a year has passed in the real world, or 20, or it could be the other way around. Those worlds, this one, all the others, are reflections of the real world, she says. This one seems pale to us because it is a weak reflection, a world that had little chance of ever being. Others are almost as likely as ours. Those are as solid as our world and have people, the same people, she says, Rand. Imagine it. You could go to one of them and meet yourself. The pattern has infinite variation, she says, and every variation that can be, will be. Rand shook his head, then wished he had not as the landscape flickered back and forth and his stomach lurched. He took a deep breath. How does she know all that? You know about more things than anybody I ever met before, Loial, and all you knew about this world amounted to no more than a rumor. She's Cairhienin, Rand. The Royal Library in Cairhien is one of the greatest in the world, perhaps the greatest outside Tar Valon. The Isle spared it deliberately, when they burned Cairhien. They will not destroy a book. Did you know that they... I don't care about Islemen, Rand said hotly. If Selene knows so much, I hope she read how to get us home from here. I wish Selene... You wish Selene what? The woman laughed as she joined them. Rand stared at her as if she had been gone months. That was how he felt. I wish Selene would come ride with me some more, he said. Loial chuckled, and Rand felt his face burn. Selene smiled and looked at Loial. You will excuse us, Alantin. The Ogier bowed in his saddle and let his big horse fall back, the tufts on his ears drooping with reluctance. For a time, Rand rode in silence, enjoying Selene's presence. Now and again he looked at her out of the corner of his eye. He wished he could get his feelings about her straight. Could she be an Aes Sedai despite her denial? Someone sent by Moiraine to push him along whatever path he was meant to follow in the Aes Sedai's plans. Moraine could not have known he would be taken to this strange world, and no Aes Sedai would have tried to fend off that beast with a stick when she could strike it dead or send it running with the power. Well, since she took him for a lord and no one in Caerhir knew different, he might keep on letting her think it. She was surely the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, intelligent and learned, and she thought he was brave. What more could a man ask from a wife? That's crazy too. I'd marry Egwene if I could marry anyone, but I can't ask a woman to marry a man who's going to go mad, maybe hurt her. But Selene was so beautiful. She was studying his sword, he saw. He readied the words in his head. No, he was not a blade master, but his father had given him the sword. Tam, light, why couldn't you really be my father? He squashed the thought ruthlessly. That was a magnificent shot, Selene said. No, I'm not a... Rand began, then blinked. A shot? Yes. A tiny target, that eye, moving at 100 paces. You have a wonderful hand with that bow. Rand shifted awkwardly. Oh, yes. Thank you. It's a trick my father taught me. He told her about the void, about how Tam had taught him how to use it with the bow. He even found himself telling her about Lan and his sword lessons. The oneness, she said, sounding satisfied. She saw his questioning look and added, that is what it is called. Yes. In some places, the oneness. To learn the full use of it, it is best to wrap it around you continuously, to dwell in it at all times, or so I've heard. He did not even have to think about what lay waiting for him in the void to know his answer to that. But what he said was, I'll think about it. Wear this void of yours all the time, Randall Thor, and you'll learn uses for it you never suspected. I said I will think about it. She opened her mouth again, but he cut her off. You know all these things. About the void, the oneness, you call it. About this world. About this world. Loial reads books all the time. He's read more books than I've ever seen, and he's never seen anything but a fragment about the stones. Selene drew herself up straight in her saddle. Suddenly, she reminded him of Moiraine and of Queen Morgase when they were angry. There was a book written about these worlds, she said tightly. Mirrors of the Wheel. You see, the Atlantean has not seen all the books that are. What is this Atlantean you call him? I've never heard. The portal stone beside which I woke is up there, Selene said, pointing into the mountains, off to the east of their path. Rand found himself wishing for her warmth again, and her smiles. If you take me to it, you can return me to my home, as you promised. We can reach it in an hour. Rand barely looked where she pointed. Using the stone portal stone, she called it, meant wielding the power, if he were to take her back to the real world. Hurin, how is the trail? Fainter than ever, Lord Rand, but still there. The sniffer spared a quick grin and bob of his head for Selene. I think it's starting to angle off to the west. There's some easier passes there, toward the tip of the Dagger, as I recall from when I went to Caerhir in that time. Rand sighed. Fane, or one of his dark friends, has to know another way to use the stones. A dark friend couldn't use the power. I have to follow the horn, Selene. How do you know your precious horn is even in this world? Come with me, Rand. You'll find your legend, I promise you. Come with me. You can use this stone, this portal stone, yourself, he said angrily. Before the words were out of his mouth, he wanted them back. Why does she have to keep talking about legends? Stubbornly, he forced himself to go on. The portal stone didn't bring you here by itself. You did it, Selene. If you made the stone bring you here, you can make it take you back. I'll take you to it, but then I must go on after the horn. I know nothing about using the portal stones, Rand. If I did anything, I don't know what it was. Rand studied her. She sat her saddle, straight-backed and tall, just as regally as before, but somehow softer too. Proud, yet vulnerable, and needing him. He had put Nynaeve's age to her, a handful of years older than himself. But he had been wrong, he realized. She was more his own age, and beautiful, and she needed him. The thought, just the thought of the void flickered through his head, and of the light. Saidin. To use the portal stone, he must dip himself back into that taint. Stay with me, Selene, he said. We'll find the horn, and Mat's dagger, and we'll find a way back. I promise you. Just stay with me. You always. Yes. Selene drew a deep breath as if to calm herself. You always are so stubborn. Well, I can admire stubbornness in a man. There is little to a man who's too easily biddable. Rand coloured. It was too much like the things Egwene sometimes said, and they had all but been promised in marriage since they were children. From Selene, the words and the direct look that went with them were a shock. He turned to tell Hurin to press on with the trail. From behind them came a distant, coughing grunt. Before Rand could whirl red to look, another bark sounded, and 3 more on its heels. At first he could make out nothing, as the landscape seemed to waver in his eyes. But then he saw them through the widespread stands of trees, just topping a hill. 5 shapes, it seemed, only half a mile distant, a bare 1,000 paces at most, and coming in 30-foot bounds. Grolm, Selene said calmly. A small pack, but they have our scent, it seems. Choices. We'll run for it, Rand said. Hurin, can you gallop and still follow the trail? Yes, Lord Rand. Then push on. We will? It won't do any good, Selene said. Her white mare was the only one of their mount not dancing at the gruff barks coming from the grolm. They don't give up, not ever. Once they have your scent, grolm keep coming day and night until they run you down. You must kill them all, or find a way to go elsewhere. Rand, the portal stone can take us elsewhere. No! We can kill them. I can. I already killed one. There are only 5. If I can just find... He cast around for the spot he needed and found it. Follow me! Digging his heels in, he set Red to a gallop, confident before he heard their hoofs that the others would come. The place he had chosen was a low, round hill bare of trees. Nothing could come close without him seeing. He swung down from his saddle and unlimbered his longbow. Loial and Hurin joined him on the ground, the Ogier hefting his huge quarterstaff, the sniffer with his short sword in his fist. Neither quarterstaff nor sword would be of much use if the grolm closed with them. I won't let them get close. This risk is not necessary, Selene said. She barely looked toward the grolm, bending from her saddle to concentrate on Rand. We can easily reach the portal stone ahead of them. I will stop them. Hastily, Rand counted the arrows remaining in his quiver. 18, each as long as his arm, 10 of them with points like chisels, designed to drive through Trolloc armor. They would do as well for grolm as for Trollocs. He stuck 4 of those upright in the ground in front of him. A 5th he knocked to the bow. Loial, Hurin, you could do no good down here. Mount and be ready to take Selene to the stone if any get through. He wondered whether he could kill one of the things with his sword if it came to that. You are mad. Even the power is not as bad as this. Loial said something, but he did not hear. He was already seeking the void, as much to escape his own thoughts as for need. You know what's waiting. But this way I don't have to touch it. The glow was there, the light just out of sight. It seemed to flow toward him, but the emptiness was all. Thoughts darted across the surface of the void, visible in that tainted light. Saidin, the power, madness, death, extraneous thoughts. He was one with the bow, with the arrow, with the things topping the next rise. The grolm came on, overreaching one another in their leaps, 5 great leathery shapes, triple-eyed, with horny maws gaping. Their grunting calls rebounded from the void, barely heard. Rand was not aware of raising his bow or drawing the fletching against his cheek to his ear. He was one with the beasts, one with the center eye of the first. Then the arrow was gone. The first grolm died, one of its companions leaped on it as it fell, beak of a mouth ripping gobbets of flesh. It snarled at the others and they circled wide. But they came on, and as if compelled, it abandoned its meal and leaped after them, its horny maw already bloody. Rand worked smoothly, unconsciously, knock and release. Knock and release. The 5th arrow left his bow and he lowered it, still deep in the void, as the 4th grolm fell like a huge puppet with its strings cut. Though the final arrow still flew, somehow he knew there was no need for another shot. The last beast collapsed as if its bones had melted, a feathered shaft jutting from its center eye. Always the center eye. Always the center eye. Magnificent, Lord Rand, Hurin said. I've never seen shooting like that. The void held Rand. The light called to him, and he reached toward it. It surrounded him, filled him. Lord Rand, Hurin touched his arm, and Rand gave a start, the emptiness filling up with what was around him. Are you all right, my lord? Rand brushed his forehead with fingertips. It was dry. He felt as if it should have been covered with sweat. I'm fine, Hurin. It grows easier each time you do it, I've heard, Selene said. The more you live in the oneness, the easier. Rand glanced at her. Well, I won't need it again, not for a while. What happened? I wanted to. He still wanted to, he realized with horror. He wanted to go back into the void, wanted to feel that light filling him again. It had seemed as if he were truly alive then, sickliness and all, and now was only an imitation. Or worse, he had been almost alive, knowing what alive would be like. All he had to do was reach out to saidin. Not again, he muttered. He gazed off at the dead grolm, 5 monstrous shapes lying on the ground. Not dangerous anymore. Now we can be on our... A coughing bark, all too familiar, sounded beyond the dead grolm, beyond the next hill, and others answered it. Still more came, from the east, from the west. Rand half raised his bow. How many arrows do you have left? Selene demanded. Can you kill 20 grolm? 30? 100? We must go to the portal stone. She is right, Rand, Loial said slowly. You do not have any choice now. Hurin was watching Rand anxiously. The grolm called, a score of barks overlapping. The stone, Rand agreed reluctantly. Angrily, he threw himself back into his saddle, slung the bow on his back. Lead us to this stone, Selene. With a nod, she turned her mare and heeled it to a trot. Rand and the others followed, they eagerly, he holding back. The barks of grolm pursued them, hundreds it seemed. It sounded as if the grolm were ranged in a semicircle around them, closing in from every direction but the front. Swiftly and surely, Selene led them through the hills. The land rose in the beginning of mountains. Slopes steepening so the horses scrambled over washed-out-looking rocky outcrops and the sparse, faded-looking brush that clung to them. The way became harder, the land slanting more and more upward. We're not going to make it, Rand thought. The fifth time Red slipped and slid backwards in a shower of stone. Loial threw his quarterstaff aside. It would be of no use against Grolm, and it only slowed him. The Ogier had given up riding. He used one hand to haul himself up and pulled his tall horse behind him with the other. The hairy, fetlocked animal made heavy going, but easier than with Loial on its back. Grolm barked behind them, closer now. Then Selene drew rein and pointed to a hollow, nestled below them in the granite. It was all there, the 7 wide, coloured stairs around a pale floor and the tall stone column in the middle. She dismounted and led her mare into the hollow, down the stairs to the column. It loomed over her. She turned to look back up at Rand and the others. The grolm gave their grunting barks, scores of them, loud. Near. They will be on us soon, she said. You must use the stone, Rand, or else find a way to kill all the grolm. With a sigh, Rand got down from his saddle and led Red into the hollow. Loial and Hurin followed hastily. He stared at the symbol-covered column, the portal stone, uneasily. She must be able to channel, even if she doesn't know it, or it couldn't have brought her here. The power doesn't harm women. If this brought you here, he began, but she interrupted him. I know what it is, she said firmly, but I do not know how to use it. You must do what must be done. She traced one symbol, a little larger than the others, with a finger. A triangle standing on its point inside a circle. This stands for the true world, our world. I believe it will help if you hold it in your mind while you... She spread her hands as if unsure exactly what it was he was supposed to do. My lord, Hurin said diffidently. There isn't much time. He glanced over his shoulder at the rim of the hollow. The barking was louder. Those things will be here in minutes now, Loial nodded. Drawing a deep breath, Rand put his hand on the symbol Selene had pointed out. He looked at her to see if he was doing it right, but she merely watched, not even the slightest frown of worry wrinkling her pale forehead. She's confident you can save her. You have to. The scent of her filled his nostrils. My lord, Rand swallowed and sought the void. It came easily, springing up around him without effort. Emptiness. Emptiness except for the light, wavering in a way that turned his stomach. Emptiness except for saidin. But even the queasiness was distant. He was one with the portal stone. The column felt smooth and slightly oily under his hand, but the triangle and circle seemed warm against the brand on his palm. Have to get them to safety. Have to get them home. The light drifted toward him, it seemed, surrounded him, and he embraced it. Light filled him. Heat filled him. He could see the stone, see the others watching him, Loial and Hurin anxiously, Selene showing no doubt that he could save her, but they might as well not have been there. The light was all. The heat and the light, suffusing his limbs like water sinking into dry sand, filling him. The symbol burned against his flesh. He tried to suck it all in, all the heat, all the light. All. The symbol. Suddenly, as if the sun had gone out for the blink of an eye, the world flickered. And again, the symbol was a live coal under his hand. He drank in the light. The world flickered. It made him sick, that light. It was water to a man dying of thirst. Flicker. He sucked at it. It made him want to vomit. He wanted it all. Flicker. The triangle and circle seared him. He could feel it charring his hand. Flicker. He wanted it all. He screamed, howling with pain, howling with wanting. Flicker. 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 Hands pulled at him. He was only vaguely aware of them. He staggered back. The void was slipping away, the light and the sickness that twisted at him. The light. He watched it go regretfully. Light, that's crazy to want it. But I was so full of it. I was so... Dazed, he stared at Selene. It was she who held his shoulders, stared wonderingly into his eyes. He raised his hand in front of his face. The heron brand was there, but nothing else. No triangle and circle burned into his flesh. Remarkable, Selene said slowly. She glanced at Loial and Hurin. The Ogier looked stunned, his eyes as big as plates. The sniffer was squatting with one hand on the ground, as if unsure he could support himself else. All of us here and all of our horses. And you do not even know what you did. Remarkable. Are we... Rand began hoarsely and had to stop to swallow. Look around you, Selene said. You brought us home. She gave a sudden laugh. You brought all of us home. For the first time, Rand became aware of his surroundings again. The hollow surrounded them without any stairs, though here and there lay a suspiciously smooth piece of stone, coloured red or blue. The column lay against the mountainside, half buried in the loose rock of a fall. The symbols were unclear here, wind and water had worked long on them, and everything looked real. The colours were solid, the granite a strong grey, the brush green and brown. After that other place, it seemed almost too vivid. Home, Rand breathed, and then he was laughing too. We're home. Loial's laughter sounded like a bull bellowing. Hurin danced a caper. You did it, Selene said, leaning closer until her face filled Rand's eyes. I knew that you could. Rand's laughter died. I suppose I did. He glanced at the fallen portal stone and managed a weak laugh. I wish I knew what it was I did, though. Selene looked deep into his eyes. Perhaps one day you will know, she said softly. You are surely destined for great things. Her eyes seemed as dark and deep as night, as soft as velvet. Her mouth. If I kissed her. He blinked and stepped back hurriedly, clearing his throat. Selena, please don't tell anyone about this. About the portal stone, and me. I don't understand it, and neither will anybody else. You know how people are about things they don't understand. Her face wore no expression at all. Suddenly, he wished very much that Matt and Perrin were there. Perrin knew how to talk to girls, and Matt could lie with a straight face. He could manage neither very well. Suddenly, Selene smiled and dropped a half-mocking curtsy. I will keep your secret, my Lord Randolph Thor. Rand glanced at her and cleared his throat again. Is she angry with me? She'd certainly be angry if I had tried to kiss her. I think. He wished she would not look at him as she was, as if she knew what he was thinking. Hurin, is there any chance the Dark Friends used this stone before us? The sniffer shook his head ruefully. They were angling to the west of here, Lord Rand. Unless these portal stone things are more common than I've seen, I'd say they're still in that other world. But it wouldn't take me an hour to check it. The land's the same here as there. I could find the place here where I lost the trail there, if you see what I mean, and see if they've already gone by. Rand glanced at the sky. The sun, a wonderfully strong sun, not pale at all, sat low to the west, stretching their shadows out across the hollow. Another hour would bring full twilight. In the morning, he said. But I fear we've lost them. We can't lose that dagger. We can't. Selene, if that's the case, in the morning we will take you on to your home. Is it in the city of Kerhian itself, or... You may not have lost the Horn of Valere yet, Selene said slowly. As you know, I do know a few things about those worlds. Mirrors of the Wheel, Loial said. She gave him a look, then nodded. Yes, exactly. Those worlds truly are mirrors in a way, especially the ones where there are no people. Some of them reflect only great events in the true world, but some have a shadow of that reflection even before the event occurs. The passage of the Horn of Valere would certainly be a great event. Reflections of what will be are fainter than reflections of what is or what was. Just as Hurin says, the trail he followed was faint. Hurin blinked incredulously. You mean to say, my lady, I've been smelling where those Dark Friends are going to be? The light helped me. I wouldn't like that. It's bad enough smelling where violence has been, without smelling where it will be too. There can't be many spots where there won't be some kind of violence, some time. It would drive me crazy, like as not. That place we just left nearly did. I could smell it all the time, there, killing and hurting, and the vilest evil you could think of. I could even smell it on us, on all of us. Even on you, my lady, if you'll forgive me for saying so. It was just that place, twisting me the way it twisted your eye. He gave himself a shake. I'm glad we're out of there. I can't get it out of my nostrils yet, all the way. Rand rubbed absently at the brand on his palm. What do you think, Loial? Could we really be ahead of Fane's Dark Friends? The OGA shrugged, frowning. I don't know, Rand. I don't know anything about any of this. I think we are back in our world. I think we are in Kinslayer's Dagger. Beyond that. He shrugged again. He shrugged again. We should be seeing you home, Selene, Rand said. Your people will be worried about you. A few days we'll see if I'm right, she said impatiently. Hurin can find where he left the trail. He said so. We can watch over it. The Horn of Valere cannot be much longer reaching here. The Horn of Valere, Rand. Think of it. The man who sounds the horn will live in legend forever. I don't want anything to do with legends, he said sharply. But if the Dark Friends get by you... What if Ingtar lost them? Then the Dark Friends have the Horn of Valere forever and Matt dies. Right, a few days. At the worst, we will probably meet Ingtar and the others. I can't imagine they've stopped or turned back just because we... went away. A wise decision, Rand, Selene said, and well thought out. She touched his arm and smiled, and he found himself again thinking of kissing her. We need to be closer to where they'll come. If they do come... Hurin, can you find us a camp before dark, somewhere we can watch the place where you lost the trail? He glanced at the portal stone and thought about sleeping near it, thought of the way the void had crept up on him in sleep the last time, and the light in the void. Somewhere well away from here. Leave it in my hands, Lord Rand. The sniffer scrambled to his saddle. I vow I'll never sleep again without. First I see what kind of stone there is nearby. As Rand rode Red up out of the hollow, he found himself watching Selene more than he did Hurin. She seemed so cool and self-possessed, no older than he, yet queenly, but when she smiled at him, as she did just then, Egwene wouldn't have said I was wise. Egwene would have called me a woolhead. Irritably, he healed Red's flanks. Egwene balanced on the healing deck as the River Queen sped down the wide Erenin under cloud-dark skies, sails full-bellied, white flame banner whipping furiously at the mainmast. The wind had risen as soon as the last of them was aboard the ships back in Meadow, and it had not failed or flagged for an instant since, day or night. The river had begun to race in flood, as it still did, slapping the ships about while it drove them onward. Wind and river had not slowed, and neither had the ships, all clustered together. The River Queen led, only right for the vessel that carried the Amelin seat. The helmsman held his tiller grimly, feet planted and spread, and sailors padded barefoot at their work, intent on what they did. When they glanced at the sky or the river, they tore their eyes away with low mutters. A village was just fading from view behind, and a boy raced along the bank. He had kept up with the ships for a short distance, but now they were leaving him behind. When he vanished, Egwene made her way below. In the small cabin they shared, Nynaeve glared up at her from her narrow bed. They say we'll reach Tar Valon today. The light helped me, but I'll be glad to put foot on land again, even if it is in Tar Valon. The ship lurched with wind and current, and Nynaeve swallowed. I'll never step on a boat again, she said breathlessly. Egwene shook the river spray out of her cloak and hung it on a peg by the door. It was not a big cabin. There were no big cabins on the ship, it seemed. Not even the one the Amelin had taken over from the captain, though that was larger than the rest. With its 2 beds built into the walls, shelves beneath them and cabinets above, everything lay close to hand. Except for keeping her balance. The movements of the ship did not bother her the way they did Nynaeve. She had given up offering Nynaeve food after the 3rd time the wisdom threw the bowl at her. I'm worried about Rand, she said. I'm worried about all of them, Nynaeve replied dully. After a moment she said, another dream last night? The way you've been staring at nothing since you got up. Egwene nodded. She had never been very good at keeping things from Nynaeve, and she had not tried with the dreams. Nynaeve had tried to dose her at first, until she heard one of the Aes Sedai was interested. Then she began to believe. It was like the others. Different, but the same. Rand is in some kind of danger. I know it. And it is getting worse. He's done something, or he's going to do something, that puts him in. She dropped down on her bed and leaned toward the other woman. I just wish I could make some sense of it. Channeling, Nynaeve said softly. Despite herself, Egwene looked around to see if anyone was there to hear. They were alone, with the door closed, but still she spoke just as softly. I don't know. Maybe. There was no telling what Aes Sedai could do. She had seen enough already to make her believe every story of their powers, and she would not risk eavesdropping. I won't risk Rand. If I did right, I'd tell them, but Moraine knows, and she hasn't said anything. And it's Rand. I can't. I don't know what to do. Has Anaya said anything more about these dreams? Nynaeve seemed to make it a point never to add the honorific Sedai, even when the 2 of them were alone. Most of the Aes Sedai appeared not to care, but the habit had earned a few strange looks, and some hard ones. She was going to train in the White Tower after all. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, Egwene quoted Anaya. The boy is far away, child, and there's nothing we can do until we know more. I will see to testing you myself once we reach the White Tower, child. Ah! She knows there is something in these dreams. I can tell she does. I like the woman, Nynaeve, I do. But she won't tell me what I want to know, and I can't tell her everything. Maybe, if I could. The man in the mask again? Egwene nodded. Somehow, she was sure it was better not to tell Anaya about him. She could not imagine why, but she was sure. 3 times the man whose eyes were fire had been in her dreams, each time when she dreamed a dream that convinced her Rand was in danger. He always wore a mask across his face. Sometimes she could see his eyes, and sometimes she could only see fire where they should be. He laughed at me. It was so contemptuous, as though I were a puppy he was going to have to push out of his way with his foot. It frightens me. He frightens me. Are you sure it has anything to do with the other dreams, with Rand? Sometimes a dream is just a dream. Egwene threw up her hands. And sometimes, Nynaeve, you sound just like Anaya Sedai. She put a special emphasis on the title and was pleased to see Nynaeve grimace. If I ever get out of this bed, Egwene, a knock at the door cut off whatever Nynaeve had been going to say. Before Egwene could speak or move, the Amelin herself came in and shut the door behind her. She was alone, for a wonder. She seldom left her cabin, and then always with Lean at her side, and maybe another of the Aes Sedai. Egwene sprang to her feet. The room was a little crowded, with 3 of them in it. Both of you feeling well? The Amelin said cheerily. She tilted her head at Nynaeve. Eating well too, I trust? In good temper. Nynaeve struggled to a sitting position with her back against the wall. My temper is just fine, thank you. We are honored, Mother, Egwene began, but the Amelin waved her to silence. It's good to be on the water again, but it grows boring as a mill pond after a while with nothing to do. The ship heeled, and she shifted her balance without seeming to notice. I will give you your lesson today. She folded herself onto the end of Egwene's bed, feet tucked under her. Sit, child. Egwene sat, but Nynaeve began trying to push herself to her feet. I think I will go on deck. I said, sit. The Merlin's voice cracked like a whip, but Nynaeve kept rising, wavering. She still had both hands on the bed, but she was almost upright. Egwene held herself ready to catch her when she fell. Closing her eyes, Nynaeve slowly lowered herself back to the bed. Perhaps I will stay. It is no doubt windy up there. The Amelin barked a laugh. They told me you had a temper in you like a fisher bird with a bone in its throat. Some of them, child, say you'd do well for some time as a novice, no matter how old you are. I say, if you have the ability I hear of, you deserve to be one of the accepted. She gave another laugh. I always believe in giving people what they deserve. Yes, I suspect you will learn a great deal once you reach the White Tower. I'd rather one of the warders taught me how to use a sword, Nynaeve growled. She swallowed convulsively and opened her eyes. There is someone I'd like to use it on. Egwene looked at her sharply. Did Nynaeve mean the Amelin, which was stupid and dangerous besides, or Lan? She snapped at Egwene every time Lan was mentioned. A sword, the Amelin said. I never thought swords were much use. Even if you have the skill, child, there are always men who have as much and a deal more strength. But if you want a sword... She held up her hand. Egwene gasped, and even Nynaeve's eyes bulged, and there was a sword in it, with blade and hilt of an odd bluish white. It looked somehow... cold. Made from the air, child, with air. It's as good as most steel blades, better than most, but still not much use. The sword became a paring knife. There was no shrinking. It just was one thing, then the other. This now is useful. The paring knife turned to mist, and the mist faded away. The Amelin put her empty hand back in her lap. But either takes more effort than it is worth. Better, easier, simply to carry a good knife with you. You have to learn when to use your ability, as well as how, and when it's better to do things the way any other woman would. Let a blacksmith make knives for gutting fish. Use the one power too often and too freely, and you can come to like it too much. That way lies danger. You begin to want more of it, and sooner or later you run the risk of drawing more than you've learned to handle. And that can burn you out like a gutted candle, or, if I must learn all this, Nynaeve broke in stiffly, I would as soon learn something useful. All this. Make the air stir, Nynaeve. Light the candle, Nynaeve. Now put it out. Light it again. Pah! Egwene closed her eyes for a moment. Please, Nynaeve. Please keep a check on your temper. She bit her lip to keep from saying it out loud. The Merlin was silent for a moment. Useful, she said at last. Something useful? You wanted a sword. Suppose a man came at me with a sword. What would I do? Something useful? You can be sure. This, I think. For an instant, Egwene thought she saw a glow around the woman at the other end of her bed. Then the air seemed to thicken. Nothing changed that Egwene could see, but she could surely feel it. She tried to lift her arm. It did not budge any more than if she were buried to her neck in thick jelly. Nothing could move except her head. Release me, Nynaeve grated. Her eyes glared, and her head jerked from side to side, but the rest of her sat as rigidly as a statue. Egwene realized that she was not the only one held. Let me go. Useful, wouldn't he say? And it is nothing but air. The Amelin spoke in a conversational tone, as if they were all chatting over tea. Big man, with his muscles and his sword, and the sword does him as much good as the hair on his chest. Let me go, I say. And if I don't like where he is, why, I can pick him up. Nynaeve squawked furiously as she slowly rose, still in a sitting position, until her head almost touched the ceiling. The Merlin smiled. I've often wished I could use this to fly. The records say Aes Sedai could fly in the Age of Legends, but they aren't clear on how, exactly. Not this way, though. It doesn't work like that. You might reach out with your hands and pick up a chest that weighs as much as you do. You look strong. But take hold of yourself however you will, you cannot pick yourself up. Nynaeve's head jerked furiously, but not another muscle of her twitched. The light burn you. Let me go. Egwene swallowed hard and hoped she was not also to be lifted. So, the Amelin continued, big, hairy man and so forth. He can do nothing to me, while I can do anything at all to him. Why, if I had a mind to, she leaned forward, her eyes intent on Nynaeve. Suddenly her smile did not seem very friendly. I could turn him upside down and paddle his bottom, just like. Suddenly the Amelin flew backwards so hard her head rebounded from the wall, and there she stayed, as if something were pressing against her. Egwene stared, her mouth dry. This isn't happening. It isn't. They were right, the Amelin said. Her voice sounded strained, as though she found it hard to breathe. They said you learn quickly. And they said it took your temper burning to get to the heart of what you can do. She took a struggling breath. Shall we release each other together, child? Nynaeve, floating in the air with her eyes ablaze, said, You let me go right now, or I'll... Abruptly, a look of amazement came over her face, a look of loss. Her mouth worked silently. The Amelin sat up, working her shoulders. You don't know everything yet, do you, child? Not the hundredth part of everything. You did not suspect I could cut you off from the true source. You can still feel it there, but you can't touch it any more than a fish can touch the moon. When you learn enough to be raised to full sisterhood, no one woman will be able to do that to you. The stronger you become, the more Aes Sedai it will take to shield you against your will. Do you think now you want to learn? Nynaeve pressed her mouth shut in a thin line and stared her in the eye grimly. The Amelin sighed. If you had a hair less potential than you do, child, I would send you to the Mistress of Novices and tell her to keep you the rest of your life. But you will get what you deserve. Nynaeve's eyes widened, and she had just time to start a yell before she dropped, hitting her bed with a loud thud. Egwene winced. The mattresses were thin and the wood beneath hard. Nynaeve's face stayed frozen as she shifted the way she sat, just a fraction. And now, the Amelin said firmly, unless you would like further demonstration, we will get on with your lesson. Continue your lesson, we might say. Mother, Egwene said faintly. She still could not twitch below her chin. The Amelin looked at her questioningly, then smiled. Oh, I am sorry, child. Your friend was occupying my attention, I'm afraid. Suddenly, Egwene could move again. She raised her arms just to convince herself that she could. Are you both ready to learn? Yes, Mother, Egwene said quickly. The Amelin raised an eyebrow at Nynaeve. After a moment, Nynaeve said in a tight voice, Yes, Mother. Egwene heaved a sigh of relief. Good. Now then, empty your thoughts of everything but a flower bud. Egwene was sweating by the time the Amelin left. She had thought some of the other Aes Sedai had been hard teachers. But that smiling, plain-faced woman coaxed out every last drop of effort, drew it out, and when there was nothing left, she seemed to reach into you and pulled it out. It had gone well, though. As the door closed behind the Amelin, Egwene raised one hand. A tiny flame sprang to life, balanced a hairbreadth above the tip of her forefinger, then danced from fingertip to fingertip. She was not supposed to do this without a teacher, one of the accepted at the very least, to watch over her, but she was too excited at her progress to pay any mind to that. Nynaeve bounded to her feet and threw her pillow at the closing door. That vile, contemptible, miserable hag. The light burned her. I'd like to feed her to the fish. I'd like to dose her with things that would turn her green for the rest of her life. I don't care if she's old enough to be my mother. If I had her in Eamon's Field, she wouldn't sit down comfortably for this. Her teeth ground so loudly that Egwene jumped. Letting the flame die, Egwene put her eyes firmly on her lap. She wished she could think of a way to sneak out of the room without catching Nynaeve's eye. The lesson had not gone well for Nynaeve because she had held her temper on a tight lead until the Amelin was gone. She never could do very much unless she was angry, and then it all burst out of her. After failure upon failure, the Amelin had done everything she could to rouse her again. Egwene wished Nynaeve could forget she had been there to see or hear any of it. Nynaeve stalked stiffly to her bed and stood staring at the wall behind it, her fist clenched at her side. Egwene looked longingly at the door. It was not your fault, Nynaeve said, and Egwene gave a start. Nynaeve turned to look down at her. It was not your fault, she repeated, sounding unconvinced. But if you ever breathe one word, I'll... Not a word, Egwene said quickly. I don't even remember anything to breathe a word about. Nynaeve stared at her a moment longer, then nodded. Abruptly she grimaced. Light? I did not think anything tasted worse than raw sheepstong root. I'll remember that the next time you act the goose, so watch yourself. Egwene winced. That had been the first thing the Merlin had done, trying to rouse Nynaeve's anger. A dark glob of something that glistened like grease and smelled vile had suddenly appeared and, while the Amelin held Nynaeve with the power, had been forced into the wisdom's mouth. The Merlin had even held her nose to make her swallow. And Nynaeve remembered things if she'd seen them done once. Egwene did not think there was any way of stopping her if she took it into her mind to do it. For all her own success in making a flame dance, she could never have held the Amelin against a wall. At least being on the ship isn't making you sick anymore. Nynaeve grunted, then gave a short, sharp laugh. I'm too angry to be sick. With another mirthless laugh, she shook her head. I'm too miserable to be sick. Light. I feel as if I've been dragged through a knothole backwards. If that is what novice training is like, you will have incentive to learn quickly. Egwene scowled at her knees. Compared to Nynaeve, the Merlin had only coaxed her, smiled at her successes, sympathized with her failures, then coaxed again. But all the Aes Sedai had said things would be different in the White Tower, harder, though they would not say how. If she had to go through what Nynaeve had, day after day, she did not think she could stand it. Something changed in the motion of the ship. The rocking eased, and feet thumped on the deck above their heads. A man shouted something Egwene could not quite make out. She looked up at Nynaeve. Do you think... Tar Valon? There is only one way to find out, Nynaeve replied, and determinedly took her cloak from its peg. When they reached the deck, sailors were running everywhere, heaving at lines, shortening sail, readying long sweeps. The wind had died to a breeze and the clouds were scattering now. Egwene rushed to the rail. It is Tar Valon, Nynaeve joined her with an expressionless face. The island was so big it looked more as if the river split in two than contained a bit of land. Bridges that seemed to be made of lace arched from either bank to the island, crossing marshy ground as well as the river. The walls of the city, the shining walls of Tar Valon, glistened white as the sun broke through the clouds. And on the west bank, its broken top leaking a thin wisp of smoke, Dragon Mount reared black against the sky, one mountain standing among flat lands and rolling hills. Dragon Mount, where the dragon had died. Dragon Mount, made by the dragons dying. Egwene wished she did not think of Rand when she looked at the mountain. A man channeling. Light help him. The River Queen passed through a wide opening in a tall circular wall that thrust out into the river. Inside, one long wharf surrounded a round harbour. Sailors furled the last sails and used sweeps alone to move the ship's stern first to its docking. Around the long wharf, the other ships that had come downriver were now being snugged into their berths among the ships already there. The white flame banner set workers scurrying along the already busy wharf. The Amelin came on deck before the shorelines were tied off, but dock workers ran a gangplank aboard as soon as she appeared. Lean walked at her side, flame-tipped staff in hand, and the other Aes Sedai on the ship followed them ashore. None of them so much as glanced at Egwene or Nynaeve. On the wharf, a delegation greeted the Amerlin-shawled Aes Sedai, bowing formally, kissing the Amerlin's ring. The wharf bustled. Between ships unloading and the Amelin seat arriving, soldiers formed up on disembarking, men set booms for cargo. Trumpet flourishes rang from the walls, competing with cheers from the onlookers. Nynaeve gave a loud sniff. It seems they've forgotten us. Come along, we'll see to ourselves. Egwene was reluctant to leave her first sight of Tar Valon, but she followed Nynaeve below to gather their things. When they came back topside, bundles in their arms, soldiers and trumpets were gone. And Aes Sedai too. Men were swinging back hatches along the deck and lowering cables into the holes. On the deck, Nynaeve caught a dockman's arm, a burly fellow in a coarse brown shirt with no sleeves. Our horses, she began. I'm busy, he growled, pulling free. Horses'll all be took to the White Tower. He looked them up and down. If you business with the tower, best you take yourselves on. Aes Sedai don't hold with newlings being tardy. Another man, wrestling with a bale being swung out of the hold on a cable, shouted to him, and he left the women without a backwards glance. Egwene exchanged looks with Nynaeve. It seemed they really were on their own. Nynaeve stalked off the ship with grim determination on her face, but Egwene made her way dejectedly down the gangplank and through the turry smell that hung over the wharf. All that talk about wanting us here, and now they don't seem to care. Broad stairs led up from the dock to a wide arch of dark redstone. On reaching it, Egwene and Nynaeve stopped to stare. Every building seemed a palace, though most of those close to the arch seemed to contain inns or shops from the signs over the doors. Fanciful stonework was everywhere, and the lines of one structure seemed designed to complement and set off the next, leading the eye along as if everything were part of one vast design. Some structures did not look like buildings at all, but like gigantic waves breaking, or huge shells, or fanciful, wind-sculpted cliffs. Right in front of the arch lay a broad square with a fountain and trees, and Egwene could see another square further on. Above everything rose the towers, tall and graceful, some with sweeping bridges between them high in the sky. And over all rose one tower, higher and wider than all the rest, as white as the shining walls themselves. Fair takes the breath at first sight, said a woman's voice behind them. A 10th sight for that, and a 100th. Egwene turned. The woman was Aes Sedai. Egwene was sure of it, though she wore no shawl. No one else had that ageless look, and she held herself with an assurance, a confidence that seemed to confirm it. A glance at her hand showed the golden ring, the serpent biting its own tail. The Aes Sedai was a little plump, with a warm smile, and one of the oddest-appearing women Egwene had ever seen. Her plumpness could not hide high cheekbones. Her eyes had a tilt to them and were the clearest, palest green, and her hair was almost the colour of fire. Egwene barely stopped herself from goggling at that hair, those slightly slanted eyes. Ogier built, of course, the Aes Sedai went on, and their best work ever, some say. One of the first cities built after the breaking. There weren't 1,000 people here altogether then, no more than 20 sisters, but they built for what would be needed. It is a lovely city, Nynaeve said. We are supposed to go to the White Tower. We came here for training, but no one seems to care if we go or stay. They care, the woman said, smiling. I came here to meet you, but I was delayed speaking with the Amelin. I am Sheriam, the mistress of novices. I am not to be a novice, Nynaeve said in a firm voice, but a little too quickly. Dear Merlin herself said I was to be one of the accepted. So I was told, Sheriam sounded amused. I have never heard of it being done so before, but they say you are. Exceptional. Remember though, even one of the accepted can be called to my study. It requires more breaking of the rules than for a novice, but it has been known to happen. She turned to Egwene as if she had not seen Nynaeve frown. And you are our new novice. It is always good to see a novice come. We have too few these days. You will make 40. Only 40. And no more than 8 or 9 of those will be raised to the accepted. Though I don't think you will have to worry about that too much. If you work hard and apply yourself, the work is hard. And even for one with the potential they tell me you have, it will not be made any easier. If you cannot stick to it, no matter how hard it is, or if you will break under the strain, better we find it out now and let you go on your way than wait until you are a full sister and others are depending on you. An Aes Sedai's life is not easy. Here we will prepare you for it if you have in you what is required. Egwene swallowed. Break under the strain? I will try, Sheriam Sedai, she said faintly, and I will not break. Nynaeve looked at her worriedly. Sheriam. She stopped and took a deep breath. Sheriam Sedai. She seemed to force the honorific out. Does it have to be so hard on her? Flesh and blood can only take so much. I know something of what novices must go through. Surely there's no need to try to break her just to find out how strong she is. You mean what the Amelin did to you today? Nynaeve's back stiffened. Sheriam looked as though she were trying to keep amusement from her face. I told you I spoke with the Merlin. Rest your worries for your friend. Novice training is hard, but not that hard. That is for the first few weeks of being one of the accepted. Nynaeve's mouth fell open. Egwene thought the wisdom's eyes were going to come right out of her head. To catch the few who might have slipped through novice training when they should not have. We cannot risk having one of our number. A full Aes Sedai who will break under the stress of the world outside. The Aes Sedai gathered them both up, an arm around the shoulders of each. Nynaeve hardly seemed to realize where she was going. Come, Sheriam said. I will see you settled in your rooms. The White Tower awaits. Night on the edge of Kinslayer's Dagger was cold, as nights in the mountains are always cold. The wind whipped down from the high peaks carrying the iciness of the snowcaps. Rand shifted on the hard ground, tugging at his cloak and blanket and only half asleep. His hand went to his sword, lying beside him. One more day, he thought drowsily. Just one more, and then we go. If no one comes tomorrow, Ingtar or Darkfriends one, I'll take Selene to Kerhian. He had told himself that before. Every day they had been there on the mountainside, watching the place where Hurin said the trail had been, in that other world where Selene said the Darkfriends would surely appear in this world. He told himself it was time to leave. And Selene talked of the Horn of Valere and touched his arm and looked into his eyes, and before he knew it, he had agreed to yet another day before they went on. He shrugged against the chill of the wind, thinking of Selene touching his arm and looking into his eyes. If Egwene saw that, she'd shear me for a sheep, and Selene too. Egwene could already be in Tar Valon by now, learning to be an Aes Sedai. The next time she sees me, she'll probably try to gentle me. As he shifted over, his hand slid past the sword and touched the bundle holding Tom Merrilin's harp and flute. Unconsciously, his fingers tightened on the gleeman's cloak. I was happy then, I think, even running for my life. Playing the flute for my supper. I was too ignorant to know what was going on. There's no turning back. Shivering, he opened his eyes. The only light came from the waning moon, not far past full and low in the sky. A fire would give them away to those for whom they watched. Loial muttered in his sleep a low rumble. One of the horses stamped a hoof. Hurin had the first watch. From a stone outcrop a little way up the mountain, he would be coming to wake Rand for his turn, soon. Rand rolled over, tie, put, and stopped. In the moonlight he could see the shape of Selene, bending over his saddlebags, her hands on the buckles. Her white dress gathered the faint light. Do you need something? She gave a jump and stared toward him. You startled me. He rolled to his feet, shedding the blanket and wrapping the cloak around himself, and went to her. He was sure he had left the saddlebags right by his side when he lay down. He always kept them close. He took them from her. All the buckles were fastened, even those on the side that held the damning banner. How can my life depend on keeping it? If anybody sees it and knows what it is, I'll die for having it. He peered at her suspiciously. Selene stayed where she was, looking up at him. The moon glistened in her dark eyes. It came to me, she said, that I'd been wearing this dress too long. I could brush it at least, if I had something else to wear while I did. One of your shirts, perhaps? Rand nodded, feeling a sudden relief. Her dress looked as clean to him as when he first saw her, but he knew that if a spot appeared on Egwene's dress, nothing would do but that she cleaned it immediately. Of course. He opened the capacious pocket into which he had stuffed everything except the banner and pulled out one of the white silk shirts. Thank you. Her hands were behind her back. To the buttons, he realized. Eyes wide, he spun away from her. If you could help me with these, it would be much easier. Rand cleared his throat. It would not be proper. It isn't as if we were promised, or... Stop thinking about that. You can never marry anyone. It just wouldn't be proper. Her soft laugh sent a shiver down his back, as if she had run a finger along his spine. He tried not to listen to the rustlings behind him. He said, tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll leave for Caerhien. And what of the Horn of Valere? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe they are not coming here at all. Hurin says there are a number of passes through Kinslayer's Dagger. If they went only a little further west, they do not have to come into the mountains at all. But the trail we followed came here. They will come here. The Horn will come here. You may turn around now. You say that, but we don't know. He turned, and the words died in his mouth. Her dress lay across her arm, and she wore his shirt hanging in baggy folds on her. It was a long-tailed shirt made for his height, but she was tall for a woman. The bottom of it came little more than halfway down her thighs. It was not as if he had never seen a girl's legs before. Girls in the two rivers always tied up their skirts to go wading in waterwood ponds. But they stopped doing it well before they were old enough to braid their hair, and this was in the dark, besides. The moonlight seemed to make her skin glow. What is it you don't know, Rand? The sound of her voice unfroze his joints. With a loud cough, he whirled to face the other way. Signer, think of the glory, Rand. Her hand touched his back, and he almost shamed himself with a squeak. Think of the glory that will come to the one who finds the Horn of Valere. How proud I'll be to stand beside him who holds the horn. You have no idea the heights we will scale together, you and I. With the Horn of Valere in your hand, you can be a king. You can be another Artur Hawkwing. You... Lord Rand, Hurin panted into the campsite. My lord, they... He skidded to a halt, suddenly making a gurgling sound. His eyes dropped to the ground, and he stood wringing his hands. Forgive me, my lady. I didn't mean to. Forgive me. Loial sat up, his blanket and cloak falling away. What's happening? Is it my turn to watch already? He looked toward Rand and Selene, and even in the moonlight the widening of his eyes was plain. Rand heard Selene sigh behind him. He stepped away from her, still not looking at her. Her legs are so white, so smooth. What is it, Hurin? He made his voice more moderate. Was he angry with Hurin himself or Selene? No reason to be angry with her. Did you see something, Hurin? The sniffer spoke without raising his eyes. A fire, my lord, down in the hills. I didn't see it at first. They made it small and hid it, but they hid it from somebody following them, not somebody ahead and up above. 2 miles, Lord Rand, less than 3 for sure. Fane, Rand said. Ingtar would not be afraid of anyone following him. It must be Fane. Suddenly, he did not know what to do. Now? They had been waiting for Fane, but now that the man was only a mile or so away, he was uncertain. In the morning. In the morning, we will follow. When Ingtar and the others catch up, we'll be able to point right to them. So, Selene said, you will let this Ingtar take the Horn of Valere and the glory. I don't want. Without thinking, he turned, and there she was, legs pale in the moonlight, and as unconcerned that they were bare as if she were alone. As if we were alone, the thought came. She wants the man who finds the horn. 3 of us cannot take it away from them. Ingtar has 20 lances with him. You don't know you cannot take it. How many followers does this man have? You don't know that either. Her voice was calm but intent. You don't even know if these men camped down there do have the horn. The only way is to go down yourself and see. Take the Atlantin. His kind have sharp eyes even by moonlight. And he has the strength to carry the horn in its chest if you make the right decision. She's right. You do not know for sure if it's Fane. A fine thing it would be to have Hurin casting about for a trail that was not there, all of them out in the open if the real Dark Friends did finally come. I will go alone, he said. Hurin and Loial will stand guard for you. Laughing, Selene came to him so gracefully it almost seemed she danced. Moon shadows veiled her face in mystery as she looked up at him, and mystery made her even more beautiful. I am capable of guarding myself until you return to protect me. Take the Atlantin. She is right, Rand, Loial said, rising. I can see better by moonlight than you. With my eyes, we may not need to go as close as you would alone. Very well. Rand strode over to his sword and buckled it at his waist. Bow and quiver he left where they lay. A bow was not of much use in the dark, and he intended to look, not fight. Hurin, show me this fire. The sniffer led him scrambling up the slope to the outcrop, like a huge stoned thumb thrust out of the mountain. The fire was only a speck. He missed it the first time Hurin pointed. Whoever had made it did not mean for it to be seen. He fixed it in his head. By the time they returned to the camp, Loial had saddled Red and his own horse. As Rand climbed to the bay's back, Selene caught his hand. Remember the glory, she said softly. Remember. The shirt seemed to fit her better than he recalled, moulding itself to her form. He drew a deep breath and took his hand back. Guard her with your life, Hurin. Loial? He heeled Red's flanks gently. The Ogier's big mount plodded along behind. They did not try to move quickly. Night shrouded the mountainside, and moon-cast shadows made footing uncertain. Rand could not see the fire any longer. No doubt it was better hidden from eyes on the same level, but he had its location in his mind. For someone who had learned to hunt in the tangle of the Westwood, in the two rivers, finding the fire would be no great difficulty. And what then? Selene's face loomed before him. How proud I'll be to stand beside him who holds the horn. Loial, he said suddenly, trying to clear his thoughts. What's this Atlantin she calls you? It's the old tongue, Rand. The Ogier's horse picked its way uncertainly, but he guided it almost as surely as if it were daylight. It means brother, and is short for Tia Avende Alantin, brother to the trees, tree brother. It is very formal, but then I've heard the Cerhinin are formal. The noble houses are, at least. The common people I saw there were not very formal at all. Rand frowned. A shepherd would not be very acceptable to a formal Cerhinin noble house. Lie, Matt's right about you. You're crazy, and with a big head to boot. But if I could marry. He wished he could stop thinking, and before he realized it, the void had formed within him, making thoughts distant things as if part of someone else. Saidin shone at him, beckoned to him. He gritted his teeth and ignored it. It was like ignoring a burning coal inside his head, but at least he could hold it at bay. Barely. He almost left the void, but the dark friends were out there in the night, and closer now. And the Trollocs. He needed the emptiness, needed even the uneasy calm of the void. I don't have to touch it. I don't. After a time, he reined in Red. They stood at the base of a hill, the wide scattered trees on its slopes black in the night. I think we must be close by now, he said softly. Best we go the rest of the way on foot. He slid from the saddle and tied the bay's reins to a branch. Are you all right? Loial whispered, climbing down. You sound odd. I'm fine. His voice sounded tight, he realized. Stretched. Saidin called to him. No, be careful. I can't be sure exactly how far it is, but that fire should be somewhere just ahead of us. On the hilltop, I think. The Ogier nodded. Slowly Rand stole from tree to tree, placing each foot carefully, holding his sword tight so it did not clatter against the tree trunk. He was grateful for the lack of undergrowth. Loial followed like a big shadow. Rand could not see much more of him than that. Everything was moon shadows and darkness. Suddenly, some trick of the moonlight resolved the shadows ahead of him, and he froze, touching the rough bole of a leather leaf. Dim mounds on the ground became men wrapped in blankets, and apart from them a group of larger mounds, sleeping Trollocs. They had doused the fire. One moonbeam, moving through the branches, caught a shine of gold and silver on the ground halfway between the two groups. The moonlight seemed to brighten. For an instant he could see clearly. The shape of a sleeping man lay close by to the gleam, but that was not what held his eye. The chest, the horn, and something atop it, a point of red flashing in the moonbeam. The dagger. Why would Fane put... Oh. Loial's huge hand settled over Rand's mouth, and a good part of his face besides. He twisted to look at the Ogier. Loial pointed off to his right, slowly, as if motion might attract attention. At first, Rand could not see anything. Then a shadow moved, not 10 paces away. A tall, bulky shadow, and snouted. Rand's breath caught. A Trolloc. It lifted its snout as if sniffing. Some of them hunted by scent. For an instant, the void wavered. Someone stirred in the Darkfriend camp, and the Trolloc turned to peer that way. Rand froze, letting the calm of emptiness envelope him. His hand was on his sword, but he did not think of it. The void was all. Whatever happened, happened. He watched the Trolloc without blinking. A moment longer the snouted shadow watched the Darkfriend camp, then, as if satisfied, folded itself down beside a tree. Almost immediately a low sound, like coarse cloth ripping, drifted from it. Loial put his mouth close to Rand's ear. It's asleep, he whispered incredulously. Rand nodded. Tam had told him Trollocs were lazy, apt to give up any task but killing unless fear kept them to it. He turned back to the camp. All was still and quiet there again. The moonbeam no longer shone on the chest, but he knew now which shadow it was. He could see it in his mind, floating beyond the void, glittering golden, chased with silver, in the glow of saidin. The horn of Valere and the dagger Matt needed, both almost within reach of his hand. Selene's face drifted with the chest. They could follow Fane's party in the morning and wait until Ingtar joined them. If Ingtar did come, if he still followed the trail without his sniffer, no, there would never be a better chance. All within reach of his hand. Selene was waiting on the mountain. Motioning for Loial to follow, Rand dropped to his belly and crawled toward the chest. He heard the Ogier's muffled gasp, but his eyes were fixed on that one shadowed mound ahead. Dark friends and Trollocs later left and right of him, but once he had seen Tam stalk close enough to a deer to put his hand on its flank before the animal bounded off, he had tried to learn from Tam. Madness. The thought flew by dimly, almost out of reach. This is madness. You are going mad. Dim thoughts, someone else's thoughts. Slowly, silently, he slithered to that one special shadow and put out a hand. Ornate traceries worked in gold met his touch. It was the chest that held the horn of Valere. His hand touched something else, on the lid. The dagger, bare-bladed. In the dark, his eyes widened. Remembering what it had done to Matt, he jerked back, the void shifting with his agitation. The man sleeping nearby, no more than 2 paces from the chest. No one else lay so close by, spans, groaned in his sleep and thrashed at his blankets. Rand allowed the void to sweep thought and fear away. Murmuring uneasily in his sleep, the man stilled. Rand let his hand go back to the dagger, not quite touching it. It had not harmed Matt in the beginning. Not much, at least, not quickly. In one swift motion, he lifted the dagger, stuck it behind his belt, and pulled his hand away, as if it might help to minimize the time it touched his bare skin. Perhaps it would, and Matt would die without the dagger. He could feel it there, almost a weight pulling him down, pressing against him. But in the void sensation was as distant as thought, and the feel of the dagger faded quickly to something he was used to. He wasted only a moment more staring at the shadow-wrapped chest. The horn had to be inside, but he did not know how to open it, and he could not lift it by himself. Then he looked around for Loial. He found the Ogier crouched not far behind him, massive head swiveling as he peered back and forth from sleeping human dark friends to sleeping Trollocs. Even in the night it was plain Loial's eyes were as wide as they could go. They looked as big as saucers in the light of the moon. Rand reached out and took Loial's hand. The Ogier gave a start and gasped. Rand put a finger across his lips, set Loial's hand on the chest, and mimed lifting. For a time, it seemed forever, in the night with dark friends and Trollocs all around, it could not have been more than heartbeats. Loial stared. Then, slowly, he put his arms around the golden chest and stood. He made it seem effortless. Ever so carefully, even more carefully than he had come in, Rand began to walk out of the camp, behind Loial and the chest. Both hands on his sword, he watched the sleeping dark friends, the still shapes of the Trollocs. All those shadowed figures began to be swallowed deeper in the darkness as they drew away. Almost free. We've done it. The man who had been sleeping near the chest suddenly sat up with a strangled yell, then leaped to his feet. It's gone. Wake, you filth. It's going on! Fane's voice, even in the void, Rand recognized it. The others scrambled erect, dark friends and Trollocs, calling to know what was happening, growling and snarling. Fane's voice rose to a howl. I know it is you, Ulthor. You're hiding from me, but I know you are out there. Find him. Find him. Al-Tua. Men and Trollocs scattered in every direction. Wrapped in emptiness, Rand kept moving. Almost forgotten in entering the camp, Saidin pulsed at him. He cannot see us, Loial whispered low. Once we reach the horses. A Trolloc leaped out of the dark at them. Cruel eagle's beak in a man's face where mouth and nose should have been, scythe-like sword already whistling through the air. Rand moved without thought. He was one with the blade. Cat dances on the wall. The Trolloc screamed as it fell, screamed again as it died. Run, Loial, Rand commanded. Saidin called to him. Run. He was dimly aware of Loial lumbering to an awkward gallop, but another Trolloc loomed from the night, boar snouted and tusked, spiked axe raised. Smoothly, Rand glided between Trolloc and Ogier. Loial must get the horn away. Head and shoulders taller than Rand, half again as wide, the Trolloc came at him with a silent snarl. The courtier taps his fan. No scream this time. He walked backwards after Loial, watching the night. Saidin sang to him such a sweet song. The power could burn them all, burn Fane and all the rest to cinders. No. 2 more Trollocs, wolf and ram, gleaming teeth and curling horns. Lizard in the thornbush. He rose smoothly from one knee as the second toppled, horns almost brushing his shoulder. The song of Saidin caressed him with seduction, pulled him with 1,000 silken strings. Burn them all with the power. Oh, Hos, no, no, better dead than that. If I were dead, it would be done with. A knot of Trollocs came into sight, hunting uncertainly. 3 of them, 4. Suddenly one pointed to Rand and raised a howl, the rest answered as they charged. Let it be done with, Rand shouted, and leaped to meet them. For an instant surprise slowed them. Then they came on with guttural cries, gleeful, bloodthirsty, swords and axes raised. He danced among them to the song of Saidin. Hummingbird kisses the honey rose. So cunning that song, filling him, cat on hot sand. The sword seemed alive in his hands as it had never been before, and he fought as if a heron-marked blade could keep Saidin from him. The heron spreads its wings. Rand stared at the motionless shapes on the ground around him. Better to be dead, he murmured. He raised his eyes, back up the hill towards where the camp lay. Fane was there, and dark friends, and more Trollocs. Too many to fight. Too many to face and live. He took a step that way. Another. Rand, come on, Loial's urgent whispered call drifted through the emptiness to him. For life and the light, Rand, come on. Carefully, Rand bent to wipe his blade on a Trolloc's coat. Then, as formally as if Lang were watching him train, he sheathed it. Rand! As though he knew of no urgency, Rand joined Loial by the horses. The Ogier was tying the golden chest atop his saddle with straps from his saddlebags. His cloak was stuffed underneath to help balance the chest on the rounded saddle seat. Saidin sang no more. It was there, that stomach-turning glow, but it held back as if he truly had fought it off. Wonderingly, he let the void vanish. I think I am going mad, he said. Suddenly realizing where they were, he peered back the way they had come. Shouts and howls came from half a dozen different directions, signs of search, but none of pursuit. Yet, he swung up onto Red's back. Sometimes I do not understand half of what you say, Loial said. If you must go mad, could it at least wait until we are back with the Lady Selene and Hurin? How are you going to ride with that in your saddle? I will run! The Ogier suited his words by breaking into a quick trot, pulling his horse behind him by the reins. Rand followed. The pace Loial set was as fast as a horse could trot. Rand was sure the Ogier could not keep it for long, but Loial's feet did not flag. Rand decided that his boast of once outrunning a horse might really be true. Now and again Loial looked behind them as he ran, but the shouts of dark friends and howls of Trollocs faded with distance. Even when the ground began to slope upwards more sharply, Loial's pace barely slowed, and he trotted into their campsite on the mountainside with only a little hard breathing. You have it. Selene's voice was exultant as her gaze rested on the ornately worked chest on Loial's saddle. She was wearing her own dress again. It looked as white as new snow to Rand. I knew you would make the right choice. May I buy? Have a look at it. Did any of them follow, my lord? Hurin asked anxiously. He stared at the chest with awe, but his eyes slid off into the night down the mountain. If they followed, we'll have to move quick. I do not think they did. Go to the outcrop and see if you can see anything. Rand climbed down from his saddle as Hurin hurried up the mountain. Selene, I don't know how to open the chest. Loial, do you? The Ogier shook his head. Let me try. Even for a woman of Selene's height, Loial's saddle was high above the ground. She reached up to touch the finely wrought patterns on the chest, ran her hands across them, pressed. There was a click, and she pushed the lid up, let it fall open. As she stretched on tiptoe to put a hand inside, Rand reached over her shoulder and lifted out the horn of Valere. He had seen it once before, but never touched it. Though beautifully made, it did not look a thing of great age or power. A curled golden horn gleaming in the faint light, with inlaid silver script flowing around the mouth of the bell. He touched the strange letters with a finger. They seemed to catch the moon. Tiami avon moridin isang devardin, Selene said. The grave is no bar to my call. You will be greater than Arthur Hawkwing ever was. I am taking it to Shienar, to Lord Agelmar. It should go to Tar Valon, he thought, but I'm done with Aes Sedai. Let Agelmar or Ingtar take it to them. He set the horn back in the chest, it cast back the moonlight, pulled the eye. That is madness, Selene said. Rand flinched at the word. Mad or not, it is what I'm doing. I told you, Selene, I want no part of greatness. Back there, I thought I did. For a while, I thought I wanted things. Light, she's so beautiful. Egwene, Selene, I'm not worthy of either of them. Something seemed to take hold of me. Saidin came for me, but I fought it off with a sword. Or is that mad too? He breathed deeply. Shienar is where the Horn of Valere belongs. Or if not there, Lord Agelmar will know what to do with it. Hurin appeared from up the mountain. The fire's there again, Lord Rand, and bigger than ever. And I thought I heard shouting. It was all down in the hills. I don't think they've come upon the mountain yet. You misunderstand me, Rand, Selene said. You cannot go back now. You are committed. Those friends of the dark will not simply go away because you've taken the horn from them. Far from it. Unless you know some way to kill them all, they will be hunting you now as you hunted them before. No! Loial and Hurin looked surprised at Rand's vehemence. He softened his tone. I don't know any way to kill them all. They can live forever for all of me. Selene's long hair shifted in waves as she shook her head. Then you cannot go back, only onward. You can reach the safety of Caerhian's walls long before you could return to Shienar. Does the thought of a few more days in my company seem so onerous? Rand stared at the chest. Selene's company was far from burdensome, but near her he could not help thinking things he should not. Still, trying to ride back north meant risking Fane and his followers. She was right in that. Fane would never give up. Ingtar would not give up either. If Ingtar came on southward, and Rand knew of no reason for him to turn aside, He would arrive at Caerhien, soon or late. Caerhien, he agreed. You will have to show me where you live, Selene. I've never been to Caerhien. He reached to close the chest. You took something else from the Friends of the Dark, Selene said. You spoke earlier of a dagger, how could I forget? He left the chest as it was and pulled the dagger from his belt. The bare blade curved like a horn, and the quillons were golden serpents. Set in the hilt, a ruby as big as his thumbnail winked like an evil eye in the moonlight. Ornate as it was, tainted as he knew it was, it felt no different from any other knife. Be careful, Selene said. Do not cut yourself. Rand felt a shiver inside. If simply carrying it was dangerous, he did not want to know what a cut from it would do. This is from Shadar Logoth, he told the others. It will twist whoever carries it for long, taint them to the bone the way Shadar Logoth is tainted. Without Aes Sedai healing, that taint will kill eventually. So that is what ails Matt, Loial said softly. I never suspected. Hurin stared at the dagger in Rand's hand and wiped his own hands on the front of his coat. The sniffer did not look happy. None of us must handle any more than is necessary, Rand went on. I will find some way to carry it. It is dangerous. Selene frowned at the blade as if the snakes were real and poisonous. Throw it away. Leave it, or bury it if you wish to keep it from other hands, but be rid of it. Matt needs it, Rand said firmly. It is too dangerous. You said so yourself. He needs it. The am I. The Aes Sedai said he would die without it to use in healing him. They still have a string on him, but this blade will cut it. Until I'm rid of it. And the horn, they have a string on me, but I'll not dance however much they pull. He set the dagger in the chest. Inside the curl of the horn, there was just room for it, and pulled the lid down. It locked with a sharp snap. That should shield us from it. He hoped it would. Lan said the time to sound most sure was when you were least certain. The chest will surely shield us, Selene said in a tight voice. And now I mean to finish what is left of my night's sleep. Rand shook his head. We are too close. Fane seems able to find me sometimes. Seek the oneness if you are afraid, Selene said. I want to be as far from those dark friends come morning as we can be. I will saddle your mare. Stubborn. She sounded angry, and when he looked at her, her mouth curved in a smile that never came close to her dark eyes. A stubborn man is best, once. Her voice trailed off, and that worried him. Women often seemed to leave things unsaid, and in his limited experience, it was what they did not say that proved the most trouble. She watched in silence as he slung her saddle onto the white mare's back and bent to fashion the girths. Gather them all in, Fane snarled. The goat-snouted Trolloc backed away from him. The fire, piled high with wood now, lit the hilltop with flickering shadows. His human followers huddled near the blaze, fearful to be out in the dark with the rest of the Trollocs. Gather them, every one that still lives, and if any think to run, let them know they'll get what that one got. He gestured to the first Trolloc that had brought him word. All Thor was not to be found. It still snapped at ground muddied with its own blood, hooves scraping trenches as they jerked. Go, Fane whispered, and the goat-snouted Trolloc ran into the night. Fane glanced contemptuously at the other humans. They'll have their uses still, then turned to stare into the night toward Kinslayer's dagger. All Thor was up there, somewhere, in the mountains, with the horn. His teeth grated audibly at the thought. He did not know where exactly, but something pulled him toward the mountains, toward all Thor. But much of the Dark One's gift remained to him. He had hardly thought of it, had tried not to think of it, until suddenly, after the horn was gone, all Thor was there, drawing him as meat draws a starving dog. I am a dog no longer. A dog no longer! He heard the others shifting uneasily around the fire, but he ignored them. You will pay for what was done to me, all Thor. The world will pay, he cackled at the night with mad laughter. The world will pay, Rand kept them moving through the night, allowing only a brief stop at dawn to rest the horses, and to allow Loial rest. With the horn of Valere in its gold and silver chest occupying his saddle, the Ogier walked or trotted ahead of his big horse, never complaining, never slowing them. Sometime during the night they had crossed the border of Caerhien. I want to see it again, Selene said as they halted. She dismounted and strode to Loial's horse. Their shadows, long and thin, pointed west from the sun just peeking over the horizon. Bring it down for me, Alantin. Loial began to undo the straps. The horn of Valere. No, Rand said, climbing down from Red's back. Loial, no. The Ogier looked from Rand to Selene, his ears twitching doubtfully, but he took his hands away. I want to see the horn, Selene demanded. Rand was sure she was no older than he, but at that moment she suddenly seemed as old and as cold as the mountains, and more regal than Queen Morgase at her haughtiest. I think we should keep the dagger shielded, Rand said. For all I know, looking at it may be as bad as touching it. Let it stay where it is until I can put it in Matt's hands. He can take it to the Aes Sedai, and what price will they demand for that healing? But he hasn't any choice. He felt a little guilty over feeling relief that he, at least, was through with Aes Sedai. I am done with them, one way or another. The dagger. All you seem to care about is that dagger. I told you to be rid of it. The horn of Valere, Rand. No! She came to him, a sway in her warp that made him feel as if he had something caught in his throat. All I want is to see it in the light of day. I won't even touch it. You hold it. It would be something for me to remember, you holding the horn of Valere in your hands. She took his hands as she said it. Her touch made his skin tingle and his mouth go dry. Something to remember when she had gone. He could close the dagger up again as soon as the horn was out of the chest. It would be something to hold the horn in his hands where he could see it in the light. He wished he knew more of the prophecies of the dragon. The one time he heard a merchant's guard telling a part of it, back in Emond's field, Nynaeve had broken a broom across the man's shoulders. None of the little he had heard mentioned the horn of Valere. Aes Sedai trying to make me do what they want. Selene was still gazing intently into his eyes, her face so young and beautiful that he wanted to kiss her despite what he was thinking. He had never seen an Aes Sedai act the way she did, and she looked young, not ageless. A girl my age couldn't be Aes Sedai. But... Selene, he said softly, are you an Aes Sedai? Aes Sedai, she almost spat, flinging his hands away. Aes Sedai. Always you hurled that at me. She took a deep breath and smoothed her dress as if gathering herself. I am what and who I am, and I am no Aes Sedai. And she wrapped herself in a silent coldness that made even the morning sun seem chill. Loial and Hurin bore it all with as good a grace as they could manage, trying to make conversation and hiding their embarrassment when she froze them with a look. They rode on. By the time they made camp that night beside a mountain stream that provided fish for their supper, Selene seemed to have regained some of her temper, chatting with the Augier about books, speaking kindly to Hurin. She barely spoke to Rand, though, unless he spoke first, either that evening or the following day as they rode through mountains that reared on either side of them like huge, jagged grey walls, ever climbing. But whenever he looked at her, she was watching him and smiling. Sometimes it was the sort of smile that made him smile back. Sometimes the sort that made him clear his throat and blush at his own thoughts. And sometimes the mysterious, knowing smile that Egwene sometimes wore. It was a kind of smile that always put his back up, but at least it was a smile. She can't be Aes Sedai. The way began to slope downwards, and with the promise of twilight in the air, Kinslayer's dagger at last gave way to hills, rolling and round, with more brush than trees, more thickets than forest. There was no road, just a dirt track, such as might be used by a few carts now and again. Fields carved some of the hills into terraces, fields full of crops but empty of people at this hour. None of the scattered farm buildings lay close enough to the path they rode for Rand to make out more than that they were all made of stone. When he saw the village ahead, lights already twinkled in a few windows against the coming of night. We'll sleep in beds tonight, he said. That I will enjoy, Lord Rand. Hurin laughed. Loial nodded agreement. A village inn, Selene sniffed. Dirty, no doubt, and full of unwashed men swilling ale. Why can't we sleep under the stars again? I find I enjoy sleeping under the stars. You would not enjoy it if Fane caught up with us while we slept, Rand said. Him and those Trollocs. He's coming after me, Selene. After the horn too, but it is me he can find. Why do you think I've kept such a close watch these past nights? If Fane catches us, you will deal with him. Her voice was coolly confident. And there could be dark friends in the village too, but even if they knew who we are, they can't do much with the rest of the villagers around. Not unless you think everyone in the village is a dark friend. And if they discover you carry the horn, whether you want greatness or not, even farmers dream of it. She is right, Rand, Loial said. I fear even farmers might want to take it. Unroll your blanket, Loial, and throw it over the chest. Keep it covered. Loial complied, and Rand nodded. It was obvious there was a box or chest beneath the Augier's striped blanket, but nothing suggested it was more than a travel chest. My lady's chest of clothes, Rand said with a grin and a bow. Selene met his sally with silence and an unreadable look. After a moment, they started on again. Almost immediately, off to Rand's left, a glitter from the setting sun reflected from something on the ground. Something large. Something very large by the light it threw up. Curious, he turned his horse that way. My lord, Hurin said. The village, I just want to see this first, Rand said. It's brighter than sunlight on water. What can it be? His eyes on the reflection, he was surprised when Red suddenly stopped. On the point of urging the bay on, he realized that they stood on the edge of a clay precipice, above a huge excavation. Most of the hill had been dug away to a depth of easily 100 paces. Certainly more than one hill had vanished, and maybe some farmers' fields, for the hole was at least 10 times as wide as it was deep. The far side appeared to have been packed hard to a ramp. There were men on the bottom, a dozen of them getting a fire started. Down there, night was already descending. Here and there among them, armor turned the light, and swords swung at their sides. He hardly glanced at them. Out of the clay at the bottom of the pit slanted a gigantic stone hand holding a crystal sphere, and it was this that shone with the last sunlight. Rand gaped to the size of it, a smooth ball. He was sure not so much as a scratch marred its surface, at least 20 paces through. Some distance away from the hand, a stone face in proportion had been uncovered. A bearded man's face, it thrust out of the soil with the dignity of vast years. The broad features seemed to hold wisdom and knowledge. Unsummoned, the void formed, whole and complete, in an instant, saidin, glowing, beckoning. So intent was he on the face and the hand that he did not even realize what had happened. He had once heard a ship captain speak of a giant hand holding a huge crystal sphere. Baal Domon had claimed it stuck out of a hill on the island of Tremalking. "This is dangerous," Selene said. "Come away, Rand. I believe I can find a way down there," he said absently. Saidin sang to him. The huge ball seemed to glow white with the light of the sinking sun. It seemed to him that in the depths of the crystal, light swirled and danced in time to the song of saidin. He wondered why the men below did not appear to notice. Selene rode close and took hold of his arm. "Please, Rand, you must come away." He looked at her hand, puzzled, then followed her arm up to her face. She seemed genuinely worried, perhaps even afraid. "If this bank doesn't give way beneath our horses and break our necks with the fall, those men are guards, and no one puts guards on something they wish every passerby to examine. What good will it do you to avoid fame if some lord's guards arrest you? Come away." Suddenly, a drifting, distant thought, he realized that the void surrounded him. Saidin sang, and the sphere pulsed. Even without looking, he could feel it. And the thought came that if he sang the song Saidin sang, that huge stone face would open its mouth and sing with him. With him and with Saidin, all one. "Please, Rand," Selene said. "So, I will go to the village with you. I won't mention the horn again. Only come away." He released the void. And it did not go, Saidin crooned, and the light in the sphere beat like a heart, like his heart. Loial, Hurin, Selene, they all stared at him, but they seemed oblivious to the glorious blaze from the crystal. He tried to push the void away. It held like granite. He floated in an emptiness as hard as stone. The song of Saidin, the song of the sphere, he could feel them quivering along his bones. Grimly, he refused to give in, reached deep inside himself. "I will not." Rand, he did not know whose voice it was, reached for the core of who he was, the core of what he was. "Will not. They pants awesome of the Marshal and they beris." Rand. The song filled him, filled the emptiness. Touchstone, hot from a pitiless sun, cold from a merciless night. Not. Light filled him, blinded him. "Till shade is gone," he mumbled, "till water is gone." Power filled him. He was one with the sphere. I beings. Into the shadow with teeth bared. The power was his. The power was his. I beings. To spit in sight-blinder's eye. Power to break the world. I beings. "On the last day!" It came out as a shout, and the void was gone. Red shied at his cry. Clay crumbled under the stallion's hoof, spilling into the pit. The big bay went to his knees. Rand leaned forward, gathering the reins, and Red scrambled to safety, away from the edge. They were all staring at him, he saw. Selene, Loial, Hurin, all of them. What happened? The void. He touched his forehead. The void had not gone when he released it, and the glow of Saidin had grown stronger, and he could not remember anything more. Saidin, he felt cold. "Did I do something?" He frowned, trying to remember. "Did I say something?" "You just sat there stiff as a statue," Loial said, mumbling to yourself no matter what anyone said. "I couldn't make out what you were saying, not until you shouted, 'Day!' loud enough to wake the dead and nearly put your horse over the edge. Are you ill? You're acting more and more oddly every day." "I'm not sick," Rand said harshly, then softened it. "I am all right, Loial." Selene watched him warily. From the pit came the sound of men calling, the words indistinguishable. "Lord Rand," Hurin said, "I think those guards have finally noticed us. If they know a way up this side, they could be here any minute." "Yes," Selene said. "Let us leave here quickly." Rand glanced to the excavation, then away again quickly. The great crystal held nothing except reflected light from the evening sun, but he did not want to look at it. He could almost remember something about the sphere. "I don't see any reason to wait for them. We didn't do anything. Let's find an inn." He turned red toward the village, and they soon left pit and shouting guards behind. As many villages did, Tremoncian covered the top of a hill, but like the farms they had passed, this hill had been sculpted into terraces with stone retaining walls. Square stone houses sat on precise plots of land, with exact gardens behind, along a few straight streets that crossed each other at right angles. The necessity of a curve to streets going around the hill seemed begrudged. Yet the people seemed open and friendly enough, pausing to nod to each other as they hurried about their last chores before nightfall. They were a short folk none taller than Rand's shoulder, and few as tall as Hurin, with dark eyes and pale, narrow faces, and dressed in dark clothes, except for a few who wore slashes of colour across the chest. Smells of cooking, oddly spiced, to Rand's nose filled the air. Though a handful of goodwives still hung over their doors to talk, the doors were split, so the top could stand open while the bottom was closed. The people eyed the newcomers curiously, with no sign of hostility. A few stared a moment longer at Loial, an Ogier walking alongside a horse as big as a Durran stallion, but never more than a moment longer. The inn, at the very top of the hill, was stone like every other building in the town, and plainly marked by a painted sign hanging over the wide doors. The 9 Rings. Rand swung down with a smile and tied red to one of the hitching posts out front. The 9 Rings had been one of his favourite adventure stories when he was a boy. He supposed it still was. Selene still seemed uneasy when he helped her dismount. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I didn't frighten you back there, did I? Red would never fall over a cliff with me." He wondered what had really happened. "You terrified me," she said in a tight voice. "And I do not frighten easily. You could have killed yourself, killed." She smoothed her dress. "Ride with me, tonight. Now, bring the horn, and I will stay by your side forever. Think of it, me by your side, and the horn of Valere in your hands, and that will only be the beginning, I promise." "What more could you ask for?" Rand shook his head. "I can't, Selene. The horn. The horn." He looked around. He looked around. A man looked out his window across the way, then twitched the curtains closed. Evening darkened the street, and there was no one else in sight now except Loial and Hurin. "The horn is not mine." "I told you that." She turned her back on him, her white cloak walling him off as effectively as bricks. Rand expected the common room to be empty, since it was nearly supper time, but half a dozen men crowded one table, dicing among their jacks of ale, and another sat by himself over a meal. Though the dicers carried no weapons in sight and wore no armour, only plain coats and breeches of dark blue, something about the way they held themselves told Rand they were soldiers. His eyes went to the solitary man, an officer with the tops of his high boots turned down, and his sword propped against the table beside his chair. A single slash of red and one of yellow crossed the chest of the officer's blue coat from shoulder to shoulder, and the front of his head was shaved, though his black hair hung long in the back. The soldier's hair was clipped short, as if it all had been cut under the same bowl. All 7 turned to look as Rand and the others came in. The innkeeper was a lean woman with a long nose and greying hair, but her wrinkles seemed part of her ready smile more than anything else. She came bustling up, wiping her hands on a spotless white apron. "Good even to you." Her quick eyes took in Rand's gold-embroidered red coat and Selene's fine white dress. "My lord, my lady." "I am Magdalen Madwyn, my lord. Be welcome to the 9 Rings. And an Ogier. Not many of your kind come this way, friend Ogier. Would you be up from steading tofu, then?" Loial managed an awkward half-bow under the weight of the chest. "No, good innkeeper. I come the other way, from the borderlands." "From the borderlands, you say? Well, and you, my lord?" "Forgive me for asking, but you've not the look of the borderlands, if you don't mind my saying it. I'm from the 2 Rivers, Mistress Madwyn, in Andor." He glanced at Selene. She did not seem to admit he existed. Her level look barely admitted that the room existed, or anyone in it. "The Lady Selene is from Caerhien, from the capital, and I am from Andor. As you say, my lord." Mistress Madwyn's glance flickered to Rand's sword. The bronze herons were plain on scabbard and hilt. She frowned slightly, but her face was clear again in a blink. "You'll be wanting a meal for yourself, and your beautiful lady, and your followers. And rooms, I expect. I'll have your horses seen to. I've a good table for you, right this way, and pork with yellow peppers on the fire." "Would you be hunting the horn of Valere then, my lord, you and your lady?" In the act of following her, Rand almost stumbled. "No. Why would you think we were? No offence, my lord. We've had 2 through here already, all polished to look like heroes. Not to suggest anything of the kind about you, my lord, in the last month. Not many strangers come here, except traders up from the capital to buy oats and barley. I'd not suppose the hunt has left Ilian yet, but maybe some don't think they really need the blessing, and they'll get a jump on the others by missing it." "We are not hunting the horn, mistress." Rand did not glance at the bundle in Loial's arms. The blanket with its colourful stripes hung bunched over the Ogier's thick arms and disguised the chest well. "We surely are not. We are on our way to the capital, as you say, my lord." "Forgive me for asking, but is your lady well?" Selene looked at her and spoke for the first time. "I am quite well." Her voice left a chill in the air that stifled talk for a moment. "You are not Caerhien, Mistress Madwyn," Hurin said suddenly. Burdened down with their saddlebags and Rand's bundle, he looked like a walking baggage cart. "Pardon, but you don't sound it." Mistress Madwen's eyebrows rose, and she shot a glance at Rand, then grinned. I should have known you'd let your man speak freely, but I've grown used to. Her glance darted toward the officer who had gone back to his own meal. Light, no, I'm not Kerheenan, but for my sins, I married one. 23 years I lived with him, and when he died on me, the light shine on him. I was all ready to go back to Lugard, but he had the last laugh, he did. He left me the inn, and his brother the money, when I was sure it would be the other way round. Tricksome and scheming, Berin was, like every man I've ever known, Kerheenan most of all. Will you be seated, my lord? My lady? The innkeeper gave a surprised blink when Hurin sat at table with them, and Ogier, it seemed, was one thing, but Hurin was clearly a servant in her eyes. With another quick look at Rand, she bustled off to the kitchens, and soon serving girls came with their meal, giggling and staring at the lord and the lady and the Ogier, till Mistress Madwen chased them back to their work. At first, Rand stared at his food doubtfully. The pork was cut in small bits, mixed with long strips of yellow peppers and peas and a number of vegetables and things he did not recognize, all in some sort of clear, thick sauce. It smelled sweet and sharp both at the same time. Selene only picked at hers, but Loial was eating with a will. Hurin grinned at Rand over his fork. They spiced their food oddly, Kerheenan do, Lord Rand, but for all that, it's not bad. It won't bite you, Rand, Loial added. Rand took a hesitant mouthful and almost gasped. It tasted just as it smelled, sweet and sharp together. The pork crisp on the outside and tender inside. A dozen different flavors, spices, all blending and contrasting. It tasted like nothing he had ever put in his mouth before. It tasted wonderful. He cleaned his plate, and when Mistress Madwen returned with the serving girls to clear away, he nearly asked for more the way Loial did. Selene's was still half full, but she motioned curtly for one of the girls to take it. A pleasure, friend Ogier. The innkeeper smiled. It takes a lot to fill up one of you. Katrine, bring another helping and be quick. One of the girls darted away. Mistress Madwen turned her smile on Rand. My lord, I had a man here who played the bittern, but he married a girl off one of the farms, and she has him strumming reins behind a plough now. I couldn't help noticing what looks like a flute case sticking out of your man's bundle. Since my musician's gone, would you let your man favour us with a little music? Hurin looked embarrassed. He doesn't play, Rand explained. I do. The woman blinked. It appeared lords did not play the flute, at least not in Kerheenan. I withdraw the request, my lord. Light's own truth. I meant no offence, I assure you. I'd never ask one such as yourself to be playing in a common room. Rand hesitated only a moment. It had been too long since he had practiced the flute rather than the sword, and the coins in his pouch would not last forever. Once he was rid of his fancy clothes. Once he turned the horn over to Ingtar and the dagger over to Matt, he would need the flute to earn his supper again while he searched for somewhere safe from Aes Sedai. And safe from myself? Something did happen back there. What? I don't mind, he said. Hurin, hand me the case. Just slide it out. There was no need to show a gleeman's cloak. Enough unspoken questions shone in Mistress Madwen's dark eyes as it was. Worked gold chased with silver. The instrument looked the sort a lord might play, if lords anywhere played the flute. The heron branded on his right palm did not interfere with his fingering. Selene's salves had worked so well he hardly thought of the brand unless he saw it. Yet it was in his thoughts now, and unconsciously he began to play Heron on the Wing. Hurin bobbed his head to the tune, and Loial beat time on the table with a thick finger. Selene looked at Rand as if wondering what he was. I'm not a lord, my lady. I'm a shepherd, and I play the flute in common rooms. But the soldiers turned from their talk to listen, and the officer closed the wooden cover of the book he had begun reading. Selene's steady gaze struck a stubborn spark inside Rand. Determinedly he avoided any song that might fit in a palace or a lord's manor. He played Only One Bucket of Water, and the Old Two Rivers Leaf, Old Jack's Up a Tree, and Goodman Pricket's Pipe. With the last, the 6 soldiers began to sing in raucous tones, though not the words Rand knew. We rode down to River Irelel just to see the Tyrene come. We stood along the riverbank with the rising of the sun. Their horses blacked the summer plain, their banners blacked the sky. But we stood our ground on the banks of River Irelel. Oh, we stood our ground. Yes, we stood our ground. Stood our ground along the river in the morning. It was not the first time that Rand had discovered a tune had different words and different names in different lands, sometimes even in villages in the same land. He played along with them until they let the words die away, slapping each other's shoulders and making rude comments on one another's singing. When Rand lowered the flute, the officer rose and made a sharp gesture. The soldiers fell silent in mid-laugh, scraped back their chairs to bow to the officer with hand on breast, and to Rand, and left without a backwards look. The officer came to Rand's table and bowed, hand to heart. The shaven front of his head looked as if he had dusted it with white powder. Grace favour you, my lord. I trust they did not bother you, singing as they did. They are a common sort, but they meant no insult, I assure you. I am Aldrin Caldevwyn, my lord. Captain, in His Majesty's service, the light illumine him. His eyes slid over Rand's sword. Rand had the feeling Caldevwin had noticed the Herons as soon as he came in. They didn't insult me. The officer's accent reminded him of Moiraine's, precise and every word pronounced to its full. Did she really let me go? I wonder if she's following me, or waiting for me. Sit down, Captain. Please. Caldevwin drew a chair from another table. Tell me, Captain, if you don't mind, have you seen any other strangers recently? A lady, short and slender, and a fighting man with blue eyes. He's tall, and sometimes he wears his sword on his back. I have seen no strangers at all, he said, lowering himself stiffly to his seat. Saving yourself and your lady, my lord. Few of the nobility ever come here. His eyes flicked toward Loial with a minute frown. Hurin he ignored for a servant. It was only a thought. Under the light, my lord, I mean no disrespect, but may I hear your name? We have so few strangers here that I find I wish to know everyone. Rand gave it. He claimed no title, but the officer seemed not to notice, and said, as he had to the innkeeper, From the Two Rivers, in Andor. A wondrous place I have heard, Lord Rand. I may call you so, and fine men, the Andormen. No Cairheenan has ever worn a blade master's sword so young as you. I met some Andormen once, the Captain General of the Queen's Guards among them. I do not remember his name. An embarrassment. Perhaps you could favour me with it. Rand was conscious of the serving girls in the background, beginning to clean and sweep. Caldevwin seemed only to be making conversation, but there was a probing quality to his look. Gareth Brine, of course. Young, to hold so much responsibility. Rand kept his voice level. Gareth Brine has enough grey in his hair to be your father, Captain. Forgive me, my Lord Rand. I meant to say that he came to it young. Caldevwin turned to Selene, and for a moment he only stared. He shook himself, finally, as if coming out of a trance. Forgive me for looking at you so, my lady, and forgive me for speaking so, but grace has surely favoured you. Will you give me a name to put to such beauty? Just as Selene opened her mouth, one of the serving girls let out a cry and dropped a lamp she was taking down from a shelf. Oil splattered and caught in a pool of flame on the floor. Rand leaped to his feet along with the others at the table, but before any of them could move, Mistress Madwyn appeared, and she and the girl smothered the flames with their aprons. I've told you to be careful, Katrine, the innkeeper said, shaking her now smutty apron under the girl's nose. You'll be burning the inn down, and yourself in it. The girl seemed on the point of tears. I was being careful, mistress, but I had such a twinge in my arm. Mistress Madwyn threw up her hands. You always have some excuse, and you still break more dishes than all the rest. It's all right. Clean it up, and don't burn yourself. The innkeeper turned to Rand and the others, all still standing around the table. I hope none of you take this amiss. The girl really won't burn down the inn. She's hard on the dishes when she starts mooning over some young fellow, but she's never mishandled a lamp before. I would like to be shown to my room. I do not feel well after all. Selene spoke in careful tones, as though uncertain of her stomach, but despite that she looked and sounded as cool and calm as ever. The journey and the fire. The innkeeper clucked like a mother hen. Of course, my lady. I have a fine room for you and your lord. Shall I fetch Mother Cairhwin? She has a fine hand with soothing herbs. Selene's voice sharpened. No, and I wish a room by myself. Mistress Madwyn glanced at Rand, but the next moment she was bowing Selene solicitously toward the stairs. As you wish, my lady. Lie down. Fetch the lady's things like a good girl now. One of the serving girls ran to take Selene's saddlebags from Hurin, and the women disappeared upstairs, Selene stiff-backed and silent. Caldevwin stared after them until they were gone, then shook himself again. He waited until Rand had seated himself before taking his chair again. Forgive me, my Lord Rand, for staring so at your lady, but grace has surely favoured you in her. I mean no insult, none taken, Rand said. He wondered if every man felt the way he did when they looked at Selene. As I was riding to the village, Captain, I saw a huge sphere. Crystal, it seemed. What is it? The Cairhennen's eyes sharpened. It is part of the statue, my Lord Rand, he said slowly. His gaze flickered toward Loial. For an instant he seemed to be considering something new. Statue? I saw a hand. And a face, too. It must be huge. It is, my Lord Rand. And old. Caldevwin paused. From the Age of Legends, so I am told. Rand felt a chill. The Age of Legends, when use of the One Power was everywhere, if the stories could be believed. What happened there? I know there was something. The Age of Legends, Loial said. Yes, it must be. No one has done work so vast since. A great piece of work to dig that up, Captain. Hurin sat silently, as if he not only was not listening, but was not there at all. Caldevwin nodded reluctantly. I have 500 labourers in camp beyond the diggings, and even so it will be past summer's end before we have it clear. They are men from the foregate. Half my work is to keep them digging, and the other half to keep them out of this village. Foregaters have a fondness for drinking and carousing, you understand, and these people lead quiet lives. His tone said his sympathies were all with the villagers. Rand nodded. He had no interest in Foregaters, whoever they were. What will you do with it? The captain hesitated, but Rand only looked back at him until he spoke. Galdrian himself has ordered that it be taken to the capital. Loial blinked. A very great piece of work, that. I'm not sure how something that big could be moved so far. His Majesty has ordered it, Caldevwin said sharply. It will be set up outside the city, a monument to the greatness of Caerhien and of House Rheaton. Ogier are not the only ones who know how to move stone. Loial looked abashed, and the captain visibly calmed himself. Your pardon, friend Ogier. I spoke in haste and rudely. He still sounded a little gruff. Will you be staying in Tremoncia long, my Lord Rand? We leave in the morning, Rand said. We're going to Caerhien. As it happens, I'm sending some of my men back to the city tomorrow. I must rotate them. They grow stale after too long watching men swing picks and shovels. You will not mind if they ride in your company? He put it as a question, but as if acceptance were a foregone conclusion. Mistress Madwen appeared on the stairs, and he rose. If you would excuse me, my Lord Rand, I must be up early. Until the morning, then. Grace favour you. He bowed to Rand, nodded to Loial, and left. As the doors closed behind the Caerhienin, the innkeeper came to the table. I have your lady settled, my lord, and I've good rooms prepared for you and your man, and you, friend Ogier. She paused, studying Rand. Forgive me if I overstep myself, my lord, but I think I can speak freely to a lord who lets his man speak up. If I'm wrong, well, I mean no insult. For 23 years, Barine, Madwen and I were arguing when we weren't kissing, so to speak. That's by way of saying I have some experience. Right now you're thinking your lady never wants to see you again. But it's my way of thinking that if you tap on her door tonight, she'll be taking you in. Smile and say it was your fault whether it was or not. Rand cleared his throat and hoped his face was not turning red. Light. Egwene would kill me if she knew I'd even thought of it. And Selene would kill me if I did it. Or would she? That did make his cheeks burn. Thank you for your suggestion, Mistress Madwen. The rooms? He avoided looking at the blanket-covered chest by Loial's chair. They did not dare leave it without someone awake and guarding it. We three will all sleep in the same room. The innkeeper looked startled, but she recovered quickly. As you wish, my lord. This way, if you please. Rand followed her up the stairs. Loial carried the chest under its blanket. The stairs groaned under the weight of him and the chest together, but the innkeeper seemed to think it was just an Ogier's bulk, and Hurin still carried all the saddlebags and the bundled cloak with the harp and flute. Mistress Madwen had a third bed brought in and hastily assembled and made up. One of the beds already there stretched nearly from wall to wall in length, and had obviously been meant for Loial from the start. There was barely room to walk between the beds. As soon as the innkeeper was gone, Rand turned to the others. Loial had pushed the still-covered chest under his bed and was trying the mattress. Hurin was setting out the saddlebags. Do either of you know why that captain was so suspicious of us? He was, I'm sure of it. He shook his head. I almost think he thought we might steal that statue, the way he was talking. Des de ma, Lord Rand, Hurin said. The great game. The game of houses, some call it. This Caldevwin thinks you must be doing something to your advantage or you wouldn't be here. And whatever you're doing might be to his disadvantage, so he has to be careful. Rand shook his head. The great game? What game? It isn't a game at all, Rand, Loial said from his bed. He had pulled a book from his pocket, but it lay unopened on his chest. I don't know much about it. Ogier don't do such things, but I have heard of it. The nobles and the noble houses maneuver for advantage. They do things they think will help them, or hurt an enemy, or both. Usually it's all done in secrecy, or if not, they try to make it seem as if they're doing something other than what they are. He gave one tufted ear a puzzled scratch. Even knowing what it is, I don't understand it. Elder Haman always said it would take a greater mind than his to understand the things humans do, and I don't know many as intelligent as Elder Haman. You humans are odd. Hurin gave the Ogier a slanted look, but he said, he has the right of Des Deima, Lord Rand. Caerhienin play it more than most, though all southerners do. These soldiers in the morning, Rand said. Are they part of Caldevwin playing this great game? We can't afford to get mixed in anything like that. There was no need to mention the horn. They were all too aware of its presence. Loial shook his head. I don't know, Rand. He's human, so it could mean anything. Hurin? I don't know either. Hurin sounded as worried as the Ogier looked. He could be doing just what he said, or... That's the way of the game of houses. You never know. I spent most of my time in Caerhien in the Foregate, Lord Rand, and I don't know much about Caerhien nobles, but, well, Deas Domar can be dangerous anywhere, but especially in Caerhien, I've heard. He brightened suddenly. The Lady Selene, Lord Rand, she'll know better than me, or the builder. You can ask her in the morning, but in the morning, Selene was gone. When Rand went down to the common room, Mistress Madwyn handed him a sealed parchment. "If you'll forgive me, my lord, you should have listened to me. You should have tapped on your lady's door." Rand waited until she went away before he broke the white wax seal. The wax had been impressed with a crescent moon and stars. "I must leave you for a time. There are too many people here, and I do not like Caldevwyn. I will await you in Caerhien. Never think that I am too far from you. You will be in my thoughts always, as I know that I am in yours." It was not signed, but that elegant, flowing script had the look of Selene. He folded it carefully and put it in his pocket before going outside, where Hurin had the horses waiting. Captain Caldevwyn was there too, with another younger officer and 50 mounted soldiers crowding the street. The two officers were bareheaded but wore steel-backed gauntlets and gold-worked breastplates strapped over their blue coats. A short staff was fastened to the harness on each officer's back, bearing a small, stiff blue banner above his head. Caldevwyn's banner bore a single white star, while the younger man's was crossed by 2 white bars. They were a sharp contrast to the soldiers in their plain armor and helmets that looked like bells with metal cut away to expose their faces. Caldevwyn bowed as Rand came out of the inn. "Good morning to you, my Lord Rand. This is Elricane Taverlin, who will command your escort, if I may call it that." The other officer bowed. His head was shaved as Caldevwyn's was. He did not speak. "An escort will be welcome, Captain," Rand said, managing to sound at ease. Fane would not try anything against 50 soldiers, but Rand wished he could be certain they were only an escort. The captain eyed Loial on his way to his horse with the blanket-covered chest. "A heavy burden, Ogier." Loial almost missed a step. "I never like to be far from my books, Captain." His wide mouth flashed teeth in a self-conscious grin, and he hurried to strap the chest onto his saddle. Caldevwyn looked around, frowning. "Your lady's not down yet, and her fine animal is not here." "She left already," Rand told him. "She had to go on to Caerhien quickly during the night." Caldevwyn's eyebrows lifted. "During the night? But my men." "Forgive me, my Lord Rand." He drew the younger officer aside, whispering furiously. "He had the inn watched, Lord Rand," Hurin whispered. "The Lady Selene must have gotten past them unseen somehow." Rand climbed to Red's saddle with a grimace. If there had been any chance Caldevwyn did not suspect them of something, it seemed Selene had finished it. "Too many people, she says," he muttered. "There'll be more people by far in Caerhien." "You said something, my lord?" Rand looked up as Taverlin joined him, mounted on a tall, dust-coloured gelding. Hurin was in his saddle too, and Loial stood beside his big horse's head. The soldiers were formed up in ranks. Caldevwyn was nowhere to be seen. "Nothing is happening the way I expect," Rand said. Taverlin gave him a brief smile, hardly more than a twitch of his lips. "Shall we ride, my lord?" The strange procession headed for the hard-packed road that led to the city of Caerhien.